incredibly important partner for us. We partner very closely with the U.S. government, and they're an important customer of ours. We love working with that administration and are happy to continue to do it.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. If you enjoyed today's programme, you can listen to the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. Still today, our province is under a provincial state of emergency, and a number of new fires have popped up in northern Manitoba, and we're going to be talking about those today and get the latest on where those evacuations are throughout our province. And right now, Heather Wells is in from our news desks with a look at the latest.
Good morning, Corey. Well, Evacuee Cree Nation is the latest northern community declaring a state of emergency. Chief Doreen Spence says fire now is just a kilometre away. The community has also now lost power. Spence says they need the basics: candles, flashlights, generators. And she says she's reached out to the Grand Chief and Premier to let them know what's happening. About 200 of the community's 2,400 members are now out of the community. Now, everyone receiving care at Flin Flon's Hospital and 2 personal care homes has been relocated, as has the rest of the city. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera applauds staff for working quickly to get everyone out. Asseguera says Manitobans are stepping up in heroic ways. We'll hear the latest in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
18 degrees right now in Winnipeg, and we are heading for a high of 30 with no rain in sight for this area of southern Manitoba. Up in Thompson, though, if you are wondering, in that area, it's another hot sunny day. 8 degrees right now, heading for a high of 24. There is a 30% chance of showers overnight, so let's hope those showers come your way up north today. Still ahead on the show, as you heard, we are going to hear from the Chief of Evacuee Cree Nation as well. There are still things worth celebrating in our community amidst these crises. It is Pride Weekend ahead, and we're actually going to have an artist join us after 8 o'clock today with some live music. We're going to chat with her. We're also going to chat with a councillor from Flin Flon on the show after 7:30 to get the latest on what's happening in his community and hear about his experience evacuating. We're also actively chasing the chiefs of Pimicikamak and Pugatawagan, who both have evacuees that are trying to get out still as that fire draws near. Stay tuned. You're listening to Information Radio. World Report is next.
Today on Q. The rapper, actor, and entrepreneur Wiz Khalifa will be here to celebrate his latest album, Kush and Orange Juice 2. He'll talk about his early days as an army brat, how they prepared him for the life of a touring artist, and how he ended up with the second most viewed music video on YouTube of all time.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. It's not even June, and Canada is already facing out-of-control wildfires across the country. Fueled by dry, hot conditions, some of the most serious fires and evacuations are taking place in the prairies. In Saskatchewan, at least 4,000 residents forced from their homes, mainly in the northeast region, as the province declares a state of emergency. Alexander Silverman has the latest from Prince Albert.
Glad we made it on time.
Lisa Highway says she barely made it out of Pelican Narrows, Saskatchewan, as wildfires raged closer and closer. The dangerous journey took her down the only road out of town, with a wall of flames mere meters away.
So my baby is 4 years old. He was pretty scared seeing all that, because he keeps asking me every day, are we going to go home? Did our house blow up?
Premier Scott Moe declared a provincial state of emergency Thursday, a move which he says reflects the gravity of the situation. The province's top wildfire officials warning it's expected to get worse. Marlo Pritchard is fire commissioner.
All of us need to pull together to get through this over the next days, weeks.
The province's largest fire, one of 8 burning out of control. is more than 200,000 hectares, nearly 10 times the size of Saskatoon. It's now threatening the village of Candle Lake, home to more than 9,000 people in the summer months. Resident Joe Rabinski is getting ready to leave.
People are very anxious, very concerned. Those that, everybody's doing their own due diligence as far as being ready to leave at the drop of a hat.
Water bombers from Alaska and Quebec are now helping battle the fires, and crews are on the way from Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. People in northern Saskatchewan hoping desperately for rain. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Prince Albert.
Saskatchewan's emergency declaration comes just a day after Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew did the same. There, more than 17,000 people have had to escape to safety, including all 5,000 residents of Flin Flon. Fires also forcing people out of their homes in Alberta, BC, and Ontario. In the east, however, there is some relief in Labrador's Churchill Falls. Terry Roberts is there with more.
The sun rose over a peaceful Churchill Falls in western Labrador this morning, in stark contrast to the uneasiness that swept over this important town of 750 people on Wednesday evening. A fire started in dry grass just east of the town around the supper hour and quickly erupted into an inferno. Luckily, the winds drove the fire and smoke away from homes. But Churchill Falls is the site of a massive hydroelectric generating station, supplying about 15% of Quebec's domestic power needs. The station was under threat from the fire and workers evacuated, but fire crews on the ground and in the air prevented a disaster that could have been felt far beyond Labrador. By Thursday morning, fire crews had taken the upper hand. And now, instead of smoke, there's relief in the air. Rain is on the way this afternoon. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Churchill Falls.
We could learn if the man charged with murder following the Vancouver Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy is fit to stand trial today. 11 people were killed in the car ramming at the end of April. Georgie Smythe has more.
It's been a little over a month since 11 people were killed at a Vancouver street festival when they were run over by an SUV that crashed into a tightly packed crowd at a Lapu-Lapu Day event. Dozens were injured and 7 people remain in hospital. 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe has been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. At his first appearance 5 days after the incident, Lowe's lawyer asked the court for an assessment of his client to make sure he is fit to stand trial. Rebecca McConkie is a criminal lawyer and vice president of the Trial Lawyers Association of BC. She says the test has a low threshold by design and is about ensuring a fair trial.
The focus is on the person's mental state and cognitive capacity now. It's not looking at what state they were in at the time of the alleged offense. It's whether or not they are able to essentially understand the process that's happening to them as they go through the judicial process now.
The assessment is expected to be shared in court today. It's important to remember that this analysis is totally different to a person being found not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. If Lowe is found not fit to stand trial, it will not be the end of criminal proceedings, but the beginning of another legal process. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Overseas, Hamas says it's taking another look at a proposed ceasefire reportedly backed by Israel after initially rejecting it. The U.S. brokered deal would see a 60-day ceasefire implemented and more aid shipments into Gaza. Tom Perry reports.
From Gaza, fresh images of desperation. Men in vehicles, on bikes and on foot, rushing off with sacks of flour snatched from an aid truck along a beachside road. Months of bombardment and an Israeli stranglehold on humanitarian assistance have left Palestinians living in dire conditions, though now there is some hope for relief. A potential deal brokered by the U.S. that would see Hamas release some of the 58 Israeli hostages, living and dead, that it still holds in Gaza in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire and increased shipments of humanitarian aid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly told the families of Israeli hostages his government backs the deal. Moshe Emilio Levy's brother, Omri Moran, was taken by Hamas on October 7th.
I want this to end, and I hope we'll reach a resolution. Hamas needs to understand that for the sake of the people in Gaza and for the sake of the future of cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians. They have to let the hostages go.
Hamas says it's reviewing the proposed deal. The group's leadership reportedly not satisfied with provisions around aid delivery and talks toward a permanent ceasefire. For the people of Gaza and the families of Israeli hostages, more waiting and more desperation. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Meanwhile, the U.S. is getting fed up with the lack of progress in the Russia-Ukraine peace talks. American officials are threatening to walk away from the table if no deal is reached soon. The warring countries are scheduled to hold another round of talks in Istanbul on Monday, but Ukraine says it hasn't seen Russia's promised proposal for ending the war. Anna Cunningham has more.
If Russia makes the wrong decision to continue this catastrophic war, the United States will have to consider stepping back from our negotiation efforts.
The acting deputy US ambassador John Kelly speaking at the UN Security Council late Thursday. Not for the first time, the US expressing its deep level of frustration at this ongoing war. Moscow and Kyiv delegations are due to meet again in Istanbul Monday for direct talks. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russia of deception by failing to hand over its peace settlement proposal ahead of the meeting. US President Donald Trump said this was promised by Russian President Vladimir Putin when they spoke last week. Overnight in Ukraine, more Russian strikes. In Kharkiv, a tram depot was hit. If talks proceed, Turkey says it's ready to host a leaders' summit, which could see Zelensky, Putin and Trump meet. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
And finally, a Russian national living in Toronto is accused of illegally shipping restricted goods to Russia. RCMP say he violated sanctions against that country. As Lisa Shing reports, it could be the first prosecution of its kind here.
It's big news, and it's a long time coming.
Toronto international trade and investment lawyer John Boscariel says the arrest of businessman Anton Trofimov is significant.
Canada has been involved in one way or another in supplying components, directly or indirectly, for purposes of use in the battlefield in Ukraine. But those things take time to investigate.
The RCMP arrested Trofimov earlier this month. Court documents show he's charged with 2 counts of violating Canada's sanctions on Russia in place since 2014. That's for exporting, selling, supplying, or shipping restricted goods and technology there to support its war effort. Technology used to make drones the Russian military uses in Ukraine. According to the online database Open Sanctions, Trofimov owns a company, Asia Pacific Links, based in Hong Kong. It reportedly has been the largest supplier of these components to Russian companies since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022.
We have believed for years that there is more of this happening than is known.
Ihor Michaelchishin, executive director of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, says his organization has been pushing for better enforcement of the rules for years.
We hope that they've found more patterns and evidence along the way, that this will be the beginning of more prosecutions.
Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. 17 right now, heading for a high today of 30. A hot, dry day ahead across the province, which is still under a province-wide state of emergency due to wildfires. And coming up first here on the show, a wildfire has forced another northern Manitoba community to evacuate. We're going to hear from the chief of Wildfire Cree Nation up first on the show. Also this half hour, our faith contributor is here to talk about a major shift in the way some Christians are approaching same-sex marriage in the 2S LGBTQ community. Also, tariff whiplash. We talked to an expert about U.S. President Donald Trump and his battle with the courts over his tariffs and whether he can implement them. That and much more in the latest on the wildfires in our province. Stay tuned. This is Information Radio. 6:11 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, we're tracking the latest on those northern wildfires. Around 2,000 people were still in Puckatawagan when wildfire smoke forced its airport to shut down. Now the Northern First Nations chief says people are getting desperate. Chief Gordy Bear says they have started taking people out by helicopter, and if that takes too long, he says they may have to resort to using boats. Century Arena in Winnipeg is one of the places where the evacuees are being put up. Brandon Perry from Flin Flon says he only managed to take his iPad and 2 sweaters. We're going to hear from him as well as other evacuees here in Winnipeg coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
I also just got a text from Chief Monius of Pimicikamak First Nation, Heather.
Yeah.
He says right now there is mandatory evacuation for Schist Lake and Big Island Lake. Also, he says the council today for Pimicikamak, him and Chief and council will be evacuating today as well.
Leaving the community.
Yes, that is right. He's been in the community helping people get out. So hopefully we'll get some more on that throughout the day. And we are chasing also the chief of Puckatawagan. So thank you very much, Heather, for that.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi is in as well. He is our technician, but also keeping an eye on the weather. And looks like another hot, dry day, isn't it?
Yeah, another hot, warm, hazy, mostly sunny day. It's going to be dry, but we won't be completely clear in most of the areas, as we're going to be seeing a light haze, while the northern part of the province this morning is dealing with thicker smoke from that fire burning. There's a special air quality statement in effect for parts of the southeastern and northern part of the province this morning. Smoke is making the air really hard to breathe and reducing visibility, especially around the Power, Flin Flon, and you're tracking it into Puckatawagan in the north, and then down in the southeastern part of the province near Victoria Beach, the Whiteshell, all the way down to Lactabane. We're seeing smoke in that part of the province. It's going to be sticking around for a while. So if you're having breathing problems, it's a good idea to take it easy today if you are in that region. Coming to Winnipeg at this time, we're seeing 17 and 18 degrees. The sky clearing up, sunshine will stick around through the morning, but you may notice some hazy skies. It's going to be a hot afternoon. Temperatures will be warming almost into the 31 this afternoon, and then tonight a few clouds will roll in, but the hazy conditions will definitely stay with us all night. Across the southern region, from the Pembina Valley region all the way down to the Westman, the Parkland, Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures this morning between 15 and 18 degrees. Also going to be hot. Most of the regions will get to 30 degrees. Up north, we're seeing temperatures between 8 and 13 degrees in the Power, Flin Flon, Thompson this morning, while Churchill is at -1. But Winnipeg right now, we are at 17 degrees, warming to 30.
Thank you very much, Abby. And quick correction, I know I said earlier it was Chief David Monius who texted me. I got a few texts out. It was actually George Fontaine, the mayor of Flin Flon, that texted me saying that Schist Lake and Big Island Lake are under mandatory evacuation orders as well. Council. So the council of Flin Flon will be evacuating today as well, along with Mayor George Fontaine. So I do have a text out as well to Chief David Monius, so hopefully we'll hear from him as well and how his community is doing as well in Pimicikamak. A couple of things to keep an eye out in terms of traffic. The biggest thing right now actually on the highways is Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam, closed entirely right now because of that fire around Split Lake to Tasqueac. Though do keep in mind, if you are evacuating from Split Lake or to Tasqueac, you can travel to Gillam. So you are still allowed even though that highway is closed. That's the biggest issue right now. Here in Winnipeg, southbound Pembina at Abinogi-Meekina overpass is closed. So you want to plan an alternative route, and you can expect delays, particularly during rush hour. If you have any updates on the commute or on the fires as well, we're opening our line to that as well, because we are, of course, under a provincial state of emergency. You can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. Well, as mentioned, wildfire has led another northern Manitoba community to evacuate. Doreen Spence is chief of Tatasqueac Cree Nation, a remote community northeast of Thompson. She spoke with CBC's Arturo Chang late last night.
The fire has knocked out our power, and right now we have evacuated some members to Gillam, And we also have some people that are waiting in Thompson because of the road closure on the PR 280. We still have crews fighting the fire, and we have the RCMP here assisting, as well as our local FNSOs, constables / also our fire department. And I am waiting for Red Cross to get back to us. I have been reaching out to Grand Chiefs. I have been reached out to the Premier to let them know about our situation. So basically, I don't know what's going to happen in the next while. We obviously need additional candles, flashlights. We need generators because a lot of people are worried about their food spoiling. And I don't know. That's all I can say right now. But we are still going to continue to evacuate members as long as Gillam is able to take our people.
So the fire is like about a kilometer away from the community, right?
Yes, and apparently it has jumped across the highway on the other side. It's happened about an hour or so, and so obviously the highway remains closed at this time.
And you haven't had any chance to figures in terms of the size of the fire yet?
I was told a couple hours ago that it was about 200 hectares.
Okay. And how many people?
But obviously, it has probably grown a couple hectares since then.
Yeah, and these things grow very fast, as we've seen in other places. How many people were evacuated?
Right now, we probably have evacuated approximately 200 people, but then we also have people out in the community in Thompson right now. That someone is somewhere on medical and could not return, and somewhere went out shopping and then they couldn't return.
That's Doreen Spence, Chief of Titasqueaq Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. She was speaking with CBC's Arturo Chang. And just a reminder, Provincial Road 280 between Thompson and Gillam is closed due to that fire, but evacuees from the community of Split Lake into Titasqueaq will be allowed to travel from their community to Gillam, despite the fact that that road is closed. If you are an evacuee and you're looking for help, there is more information you can find by calling 211 for assistance. Also, Red Cross, you can also go online and register with them for help as well. So it's redcross.ca /howwehelp /current emergency response /Manitoba wildfires response 2025. You can also just Google, I tested it out, Red Cross Manitoba wildfires response, and that'll be the first thing that shows up at the top of your Google feed. So look out for that. But the number you really should know, keep in mind, is 211.
As wildfires impact our province, keep up to date with CBC. For the latest information, listen to CBC Radio 1. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba or the CBC News app. For people who have a limited data plan or are running into spotty mobile service on the road, visit cbc.ca/lite. That's cbc.ca/LITE.
6:19 right now. We are sitting at 17 here in Winnipeg, and we are looking at a very hot, dry weekend ahead. Today is a high of 30. High of 30 as well tomorrow, and you can expect a smoky day on Saturday, and then 33 on Sunday, which is the Pride Parade, is the high, and sunny as well. And since it is the Pride Parade, we're going to change gears a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about same-sex marriage and its role in the Christian church. And while same-sex marriage and 2S LGBTQ rights are a non-issue in many Canadian households, the issue is still controversial in some conservative church circles in this country. And that's why it was like an earthquake last fall when American theologian and scholar Richard B. Hayes came out with a new book affirming same-sex relationships. And here to talk about that book and the issue among some Christians in Canada is John Longhurst, our religion contributor. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
So tell me more about, Richard Hayes, who he is, and why his book caused such a storm.
When it came to theological opposition to same-sex relationships in the church in Canada and the U.S., Hayes literally wrote the book on it. And that book was called The Moral Vision of the New Testament and it was published in 1996. For decades, it was one of the most widely influential books when it came to opposing same-sex relationships and marriage in the church. And in that book, Hayes argued that same-sex relationships were, quote, one among many tragic signs that we are a broken people, alienated from God's loving purpose, unquote, as he put it. So it really was like an earthquake that went off in many denominations and congregations across the U.S. and Canada when, in late 2024, Hayes announced he had changed his mind on the subject. And in his new book, titled The Widening of God's Mercy, Sexuality Within the Biblical Story, Hayes explained his change of heart and mind and made the theological case for welcoming 2S LGBTQ people into the family of God.
So how did he change his mind?
Like many people who once opposed same-sex relationships on religious grounds, Hayes changed his mind when he met 2S LGBTQ people. He met them in classes as students, he met them in leadership in various denominations, and he met them in his own congregation. Through those encounters, he saw them as gracious and loving and thoughtful people who loved Jesus as much as he did, and who wanted to follow Jesus as much as he wanted to follow him. And in this, Hayes is not unique. I hear that story often. In fact, just last week, a former Christian missionary in his 80s came up to me after a funeral and said he wanted to talk about 2S LGBTQ people in the church. And I thought, this might not be good. But it was the opposite. He has a gay niece, and he loves her fiercely, and he can't imagine her being sent to hell by God because of who she is and who she loves. Like Hayes, he changed his mind.
So I guess Hayes, when he puts this out there to the community, had to make some kind of argument in his book. So what is that argument that he made? Theologically speaking.
The basic premise of his book is that the Bible reveals a dynamic and gracious God who's constantly broadening the idea of grace and mercy to include more and more people. In the biblical story, he said, those who were once seen as outsiders find themselves embraced by God and the people of God. At the same time, those who want to enforce exclusive boundaries over who is in and who is out of God's family are challenged to rethink their understanding of God's ways. For Hayes, mercy is, quote, one of the persistent themes of the Bible, unquote, showing up in unexpected ways and revealing a God who is more merciful than what many Christians have assumed in the past.
So I guess there still is an elephant in the room here, right? There's those verses in the Bible that I think a lot of Christians are well aware of that are very blatantly, you could read them very clearly as being against LGBTQ plus relationships. So what does he say about that?
Hayes addresses that too. He says that the Bible should be read as a larger story of grace and mercy over time and history, not just a book where you can pull out certain verses out of historical and cultural context to support any argument, verses that in some church circles are known as truth bombs. As Hayes put it, if you want to use the Bible that way, then Christian parents have a problem because there's a verse in Deuteronomy that says, quote, if you have a disobedient son, take him before the city authorities and have him stoned to death. And no parents actually take that verse literally, of course. Yet many Christians still say that certain verses about 2S LGBTQ people are for forever and all time.
And so when this book came out, how did it reverberate through conservative Christian communities?
Well, not surprisingly, some conservative Christians saw it as a betrayal. A few went so far as to call him a heretic. And in an interview, Hayes said he knew that would happen, and he was at peace with it. He realized, he said, that the book could be the end of some longtime friendships, but he added he didn't want the first line of his obituary to be, New Testament scholar Richard Hayes, who wrote against the acceptance of gay and lesbian people, has died. Instead, he wanted his final word on the subject to be that book. And it was, because he died of cancer in January this year.
What was the response of the 2S LGBTQ community to the book when it came out?
Many welcomed the book and Hayes' change of heart. They felt affirmed and seen. But some also suggested the title should rather have been, quote, The Widening of Richard Hayes' Understanding of God's Mercy, unquote. They knew all along that God loved them and accepted them just the way they are. They said it just took Richard Hayes about 30 years to catch up. For those 2S LGBTQ people, God had never changed at all. They saw God as always being a God of mercy for everyone, including them. It was only some Christians over the centuries who had decided to put limits on God's mercy by excluding certain groups of people, including 2S LGBTQ.
So what do you think will happen in the future, when it comes to 2S LGBTQ people, in Christianity?
Well, that's a big question. More denominations are becoming affirming or at least open to talking about it, but others are doubling down to uphold what they see as a traditional view of marriage. And here in Manitoba, for example, 2 congregations were expelled from the Mennonite Brethren Conference because they became affirming, and 1 left voluntarily. Internationally, this is a big challenge of unity for many Christian groups as European and North American denominations grow more accepting of 2S LGBTQ people, while churches in the global south often resist any changes to that position. But one sign of change can be seen in the upcoming Pride Parade. That's where onlookers will see a number of church groups marching in the parade, something that wouldn't have been possible even just a decade ago. So this discussion is not going away. I expect that Richard Hayes' new book will continue to be part of that conversation.
Certainly will. Well, John, thank you so much.
Thank you.
John Longhurst is our faith contributor.
Rise in pride, stand in strength. CBC is a proud sponsor of Pride, May 23rd to June 1st. Join CBC at the annual Pride Parade and be sure to show your pride at this year's festival by downloading the Pride Winnipeg app to get the most out of your Pride experience. Rise together in unity at Pride Winnipeg. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details. They challenged Manitoba high school students to champion the environment with a video. Now you can see the results. The Climate Change Connections Youth Video Challenge, sponsored by CBC. Get inspired by the winning videos from River East Collegiate, St. John's Ravenscourt, and Louis Riel Arts and Technology by visiting cbc.ca/Manitoba/community to watch.
6:28 right now. Currently in Winnipeg, we are sitting at 17 degrees. We're heading for a high today of 30. Also, if you're turning to traffic right now, one thing to keep in mind is that up north right now, Provincial Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam is closed because of that wildfire around Split Lake to Tasqueac. Though, keep in mind, if you are evacuating Split Lake or to Tasqueac, that you can still take 280 to get to Gillam. That is still, of course, allowed. Also, a reminder, we did just get a text from the mayor of Flin Flon, George Fontaine. He did say that there is now a mandatory evacuation order for Schist Lake and Big Island Lake, as well as he says council will be evacuating, him and his council will be evacuating Flin Flon today. So heads up for that. We are going to have more on the wildfire situation throughout the show. And in your news as well. But stay tuned. We're going to talk about tariffs and the Trump tariff whiplash as well after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 17 degrees. It is going to be a scorcher as we end the month of May. A high of 30 today, hazy as well. And then overnight tonight, widespread smoke moves in. Tasqueac Cree Nation is the latest community to declare a state of emergency as wildfires grow in this province's north. Chief Doreen Spence says the fire now is just a kilometre from the community.
The fire has knocked out our power, and right now we have evacuated some members to Gillam, and we also have some people that are waiting in Thompson because of the road closure on the PR 280.
Spence says with the power out, they need basics, candles, flashlights, generators. She says she has reached out to the Grand Chief and the Premier to let them know the situation in Tatasqueac. She says about 200 of the community's 2,400 members are now out of the community. Around 2,000 people are still in Puckatawagan as wildfire smoke forced that airport in Puckatawagan to shut down. The Northern First Nations chief says people are getting desperate. A fire burning nearby was nearly 10 hectares in size as of yesterday. Chief Gordy Bear says they've started taking people out by helicopter, but if that takes too long, they may have to resort to using boats.
The alternative, we know that we're boat people. There's a lot of boats, and that's the resort. We have to take a boat down, and if the smoke comes, the fire comes, at least you have water sanctuary.
Bear says about 200 people managed to leave before Puckatawagan's airport closed. One evacuee from Puckatawagan, Rochelle Colombe, had to leave her dogs and partner behind when she fled that out-of-control wildfire. Colombe isn't sure when her partner will be able to join her in Brandon because the Puckatawagan airport, as we just told you, has closed.
But my daughter, when we were flying over and she seen the flames, she started crying, asking for her dad right away. Hopefully everybody makes it out of there on time because it's like the fire's getting really, really close to the airport.
This is the second time Colombe has had to flee her home because of fires. She was part of evacuations in 2022 that saw her family stuck in the paw for more than a month. Colombe hopes this time she won't be away from home as long. Now, everyone receiving care at Flin Flon's Hospital and 2 personal care homes has been relocated. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera applauds staff for working quickly to get everyone out. There were 71 patients in the hospital, almost 70 in the personal care homes. Asseguera says 19 hospital staff are actually staying behind to help.
They're volunteering to do this. They're stepping up in this time of need for Manitobans, and they're choosing to be in a location where they know there's a serious wildfire situation not too far away because they believe in doing what they can to keep people safe. That to me is it's so commendable.
The patients and residents from Flin Flon have been moved to healthcare facilities across Manitoba. Century Arena in Winnipeg is one of the places where evacuees are being put up. Alphonse Bigody came from Puckatawagan by plane. He says his house is safe, but the wildfires are chaotic.
It was red, orange. In the nighttime, it was unbelievable. Lots of smoke and our power poles burned.
Cheyenne Bartle came from Flin Flon. She says the first thing she saved were her birds.
It was pretty hectic. We could hardly see through the smoke and stuff at certain points. It's getting scary, so we took off pretty fast.
Bartle says her house was fine when she left. Now, in all, more than 17,000 northern Manitobans are out of their homes. Firefighters have already battled 103 blazes this season, well above the 20-year annual average of 80 for this time of year. Now, Saskatchewan is also continuing to battle rapidly spreading wildfires. The government there has declared a state of emergency as wildfires raging across northern Saskatchewan drive thousands from their homes. The prairie provinces are dealing with the worst of these wildfires. But on the East Coast, emergency crews in Labrador are dealing with 2 major fires that have merged into just one, east of Churchill Falls. And in northern Ontario, 1,100 people from the remote Deer Lake First Nation are being airlifted more than 1,000 kilometers south to Toronto. You can hear the latest on the fire situation as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. To Dallas now in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Off Ekholm and out. McDavid's going to bring. Connor McDavid scores!
On Hockey Night in Canada there, Connor McDavid with a goal to help beat the Stars 6-3, clinching the Oilers' Western Conference Final Series in 5 games. The Oilers now are back in the Cup Final and will face the Florida Panthers in a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup Final. Game 1 is set for Wednesday in Edmonton. You can find more news throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. I'm Corey Funk sitting in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. Abby Adeyemi is behind the glass. He is our studio technician, but he is also keeping an eye on the very hot and sadly dry weather forecast today.
Hot, dry, and hazy across the southern part of the province with sunshine and smoke in the north. Air quality very so. Be aware we do have that air quality alert and air quality statement in effect for southeastern Manitoba, tracking it into the north. Smoke from the fires, they're creating poor air quality and reduced visibility, especially around Flin Flon, the Par, tracking it into Pukatawagan in the northern areas like Victoria Beach. You will notice it, the White Shell, Ladukbane. You will notice it also in the southeastern parts of the province. Warm, dry day, so you want to keep you want to take care as you go out and about today in those regions. In the Red River Valley region at this time, Winnipeg and surrounding areas, we're looking at a sunny and hazy day, and it's also going to be a hot one. Current temperatures 17, 18 degrees we're seeing in some areas. The sunshine will take over soon. We're headed for a high of 30 in the afternoon. A gentle north-west breeze will be coming with that as well. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region from Modern, Winkler, Alton, and Morris down to the U.S. border. We're seeing temperatures around 16 degrees at this time. Also expecting sunny but hazy conditions. Highs would get to 30 today in those regions. In the Westman region, we're seeing 8 degrees and partly cloudy skies in Brandon. We're expecting sunny conditions today with some haze. Also, high would get close to 30 degrees. We're going to notice the winds from the southwest, and then it gets breezy at some point. Down in Dauphin, we're seeing conditions around 15 degrees at this time. Sunny. Expect a mix of sun and clouds later. There's a slim chance of showers somewhere in the forecast, and you warm to 30 degrees later with some winds coming from the southwest. In Gimli, we're looking at conditions partly cloudy at this time. 14 degrees for the Interlake region. We're going to see sunny skies, but it gets hazy. Highs will be around 28. The winds will be mild from the northwest. In the northern part of the province, we're tracking conditions in the Par, Flin Flon, Thompson, and surrounding areas. We're seeing 16 degrees in the Par at this point, 7 degrees in Thompson. Most of these regions, Thompson is partly cloudy. The Par is already sunny at 16. It's going to be a mix of sun and clouds later in the day, and there's a very slim chance of showers in Thompson later. Most of these regions warming close to 30 degrees, and then further north in Churchill, we're seeing freezing fog where current temperatures around -1. Sunny skies after this fog clears, and then hazy conditions will move in. Highs would get to 14 degrees. So overall, hazy skies, Curry. It's going to be hot in the south, and then when we check out conditions up north, it's more like they're going to be dealing with that smoke today. Winnipeg is at 18 at this point.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Also, hello to the crew behind the glass as well. We got May McKillop, our studio director this morning, and Brad Lillies, who is our YouTube producer. Also, keep in mind, we this morning, if you are planning to hit the highways, especially if you are evacuating from Split Lake to Tasqueyac Cree Nation. So the Highway 280 from Thompson to Gillam is closed, but if you are evacuating from Split Lake or to Tasqueyac, you are still allowed to take that highway to get to Gillam. Keep that in mind. As well, here in the city, Louise Bridge still closed until June 1st, as far as we know. So that should still be disrupting your commute. As well, southbound Pembina at the Abenoji-Mikina overpass, it is closed. So you want to plan an alternative route and expect delays during rush hour. Feel free to give me a call if you do see anything else. May McKillop will actually be the one answering this morning. That number to call, 204-788-3093. Well, next on the show, we have Phil DeMont with us. He is here for our business report. Hello.
I laughed when you said, yeah, give me a call. Wait a minute. It's not me anymore because I can see you picking up the phone.
I know. I'm used to being the one. I know it doesn't work like that. I wish I had that. I wish I had like 8 arms, but it doesn't quite work that way.
Fair enough.
So I understand Canada's banks are socking away more money to cover bad loans. So is this like a bad sign for Canada's economy? Or?
Yeah, it appears to be about a longer run one. The banks move unlikely to be reflected in the country's first quarter gross domestic product numbers. Statistics Canada is set to release those figures in about an hour's time. The estimate is that from January to March, we grew 0.4%. When you gross that up kind of as a yearly number, that's what people would recognize more. Bank of Montreal's forecasting the economy grew about 1% versus the same quarter last year. Not great numbers, but way better than the States. U.S. GDP grew 2.4% in the fourth quarter of 2024, but forecasts have the American economy shrinking the first 3 months of this year. It was basically all Donald Trump. The economic uncertainty stemming from Trump's trade war, leading to the dour prediction. We can't get smug in the U.S., in Canada, though. And this is where I'm going with this. Royal Bank hiked its loan loss provisions by more than 50% in the first quarter compared to the same 3 months last year. CIBC even more cautious. They socked away about $600 million for bad loans, but that's 10 times what they put away the same time last year. For me, the increased loan loss provision is a harbinger of problems for the economy, because what they're really saying is we think it'll be more of a problem to get more loans paid back towards the end of the year. People just getting exhausted and, their ability to cover their interests, especially kind of to me like the pivotal scene from the 1972 movie, The Poseidon Adventure. The boat's still upright, but the captain, Leslie Nielsen in this case, can see the huge wave coming to swamp the ship. His eyes explode on camera. It scared me as a kid. The wave in this case is all those tariffs that are already in place, and that's coming to hit our boat, basically.
But inflation in both Canada and the U.S. is lower now, actually, than in December. So could all these tariffs be less damaging than we thought?
It's possible, but probably too early to tell. But this is where I'm going with this. People had expected a burst of inflation after Canada and the U.S. put tariffs in place back in January, but inflation stayed muted in December. American Consumer Price Index, 2.9%. In April, it was 2.3%. Canada, 1.8% in December, 1.7% last month. If tariffs haven't affected prices so far, probably will change in the next few months. Companies like Walmart already signaling that they're going to increase prices on store shelves because of the tariffs. But we think of it in terms of the sticker price, but it also could hit profits. Look at the Gap. The flailing retail chain actually making a bit of a comeback this year, but in its latest financials, the Gap said tariffs will cost it something like $150 million in higher costs. That's 20% of their net income last year. So their stock price is up. So if they don't do anything with prices, if they just eat it on the profit line, shareholders are going to take a hit, and they're not going to put up with that. So they're going to pressure the Gap to pass through the price increases to consumers. So you basically get it one of two ways. You're either going to get it in higher prices, or if you're a shareholder, you're going to get it in terms of lower profits for your companies.
And now also more Canadians want to sell their cottages. So is it a good time to do that?
Well, to use the technical term, quoting Archie Bunker, it's an El Stinko time to sell. You might think they're wrong because overall home prices in Canada have soared in recent years, but it's a double-edged sword because potential buyers don't have enough cash to buy a second property. But Canadians who bought these vacation homes decades ago, kind of people before me and in my generation, they face a looming reality. I'm not being facetious here, but they're old. So if you want the cash from your cottage, you kind of have to sell now, or you're just going to, it's going to go to your estate. 17% of Canadians who own cottages plan to sell in the next 2 years. Another 17% will sell as part of the estate. Their kids basically just don't want the headaches of a second property. So in some places like the Muskoka region of Ontario, listings are at a decade 10-year high, but sales are down 50%. Still, though, if you own a cottage, if you can find a buyer, you might make it all right. In the late 70s, when a lot of these properties were purchased, the average price for a second home, $88,000. A Royal LePage report from last year pegged the median price of a recreational property in Canada, $680,000.
Not a bad return if you bought in the 70s.
No,
okay.
Indeed.
Well, Phil, what's going on in the markets right now?
Right now, Europe running against the theme that the judge reinstating Trump's tariffs is hurting stocks. UK, Germany up 0.75%, France up as well. Bad day in Asia, though. The Nikkei in Japan, Hong Kong, both off more than 1.5%. Oil up 71 cents, $61.65 a barrel. Gold's down $27, $3,290 US an ounce. Canadian dollar off, but only marginally so, trading at 72.41 cents US.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Thanks, Corey.
That's Phil DeMont at our CBC Business Desk. 6:45 right now. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. And still to come here this half hour on the show, confused by the status of the U.S. President Donald Trump's global tariffs? Well, you're not alone. We have an expert coming on to join us just after 6:50. But first here on the show, there is still lots to talk about when it comes to evacuations. And lots of people are making their way here to Winnipeg. Thousands of people are waiting to go back home after being forced out by wildfires. In the Century Arena in Winnipeg is one of the emergency shelters. CBC's Zubina Ahmed spoke to some of the people there.
Brandon Perry. A little distraught because everything happened so fast and didn't get to pack very well. But I don't know, trying to keep hopes high and hopefully we have a home to go back to.
And when you left, how was the situation there?
Pretty smoky. Yeah, I don't know, hectic. You could tell everyone was pretty frantic. And just dealing with it.
And your house was fine?
I hope so.
When you left, how much time did you have to pack up? How much did you pack?
Like 2 minutes. I packed an iPad and 2 sweaters.
Oh, okay. And how was the journey back?
Terrible.
Why? Because of the roads and you were
No,
tired?
because it's a school bus.
Yeah, exactly. And any idea how long you would be staying here and what provisions have you got here?
Hopefully not too long.
Okay.
We just got here, just figuring everything out right now. So.
And you look forward to going back home soon?
Of course, of course.
Just call me Andy. We left about 6 o'clock by the time everything got organized. They had to evacuate the town. Like when I woke up the day before, the fire's really close, and we took one up in the high rocks there, and it's not good.
Yeah, if you could tell us, how is it there right now? Like the last one you left in Toronto?
Lots of smoke, but it was still quite a ways away. The wind direction was going right. But then I heard they did a retardant dump on it, and they backburned, so that might have failed because the wind switched a bit. But no, this is fires connecting together. We've never seen anything like this up here.
And how was the smoke? Was it like breathable?
I didn't find it that bad, but a lot of people, yeah, it would not be. Yeah, it was heavy.
And when you got the notice of evacuation, how much of time did you get to evacuate?
Maybe about half a day. Like there was warnings coming up, but everything was going good.
And what about your stuff? Were you able to pack up a lot of your stuff? Or
No, I just took what I needed. I figure my house is going to be okay.
Is your house fine now?
Yeah, as far as I understand, yep.
That was CBC's Zubina Ahmed speaking to some of the people forced to leave Flin Flon. If you are an evacuee, 211 is the number to call if you need any more information on where to go or if you need certain resources. One of the communities that we've been talking about all morning is Tataskoyak Cree Nation, which is currently evacuating as we speak right now. We heard earlier from Doreen Spence, the chief of Tataskoyak Cree Nation. Also, one of its maybe more famous members is Sebastian Gaskin, a musician who's making waves right across Canada these days. We got a tune from him now. This is Sebastian Gaskin with Medicine.
So enamored, she got the golden standard, and she hold me down when I'm touching road. Give it to me dirty when I'm getting home, and give it to me straight when I'm making so. Out of character when I'm out the dome, and she got me locked. And she got me locked. Hey! If you're ready, we should kick it trying to eat. Sunday morning we be tangled in the sheets. Cause I've been on the road for like a couple weeks. And baby, we ain't nothing but some lovers, and she got me like. If you're with it, we should kick it when I'm back in town. Yeah, I'll be there in a minute, baby, hold it down. Cause you know I've been smoking and it's sticking down.
Live from the Junos, that's Sebastian Gaskin, a member of Tatasqueyak Cree Nation. And as you've been hearing in the news, Tatasqueyak Creation is evacuating, Tatasqueyak and Split Lake evacuating this morning. And a reminder, if you are one of those evacuees and you are leaving town, Provincial Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam is currently closed. But if you are evacuating, you are still allowed to take that road from Split Lake and Tatasqueyak to Gillam. Well, changing gears right now, if U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff war is giving you whiplash, you are in good company. Yesterday afternoon, the U.S. Appeals Court ruled that Trump's tariffs will indeed stay in place unchanged. That's after a legal ruling on Wednesday temporarily put the brakes on them. To explain what's going on here, we're joined by Colin Robertson. He's a former Canadian diplomat and a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Hello there.
Good to be with you, Corey.
So tell us, what's the latest on the tariffs? Because I myself am still pretty confused.
Well, you got it right. On Wednesday, the Court of International Trade, which is a three-person court of experts when it comes to trade law, ruled that the president exceeded his authorities when he imposed the tariffs on Canada with regard to the fentanyl, and also on the Liberation Day tariffs. However, they did not rule on his use of another authority to impose the tariffs that are currently applied to us on steel and aluminum and on car and car parts. The next day, because the White House said unelected judges shouldn't be making these decisions, which of course is not how checks and balances are supposed to work, but the next day a court of appeal said, granted what the White House sought, which was a stay in the application of the Court of International Trade ruling. Well, they could sort out their appeal, which will probably be to the Supreme Court of the United States today or in the coming days. They've been given until June the 9th to do that. So it means that nothing changes, but the authority that the president used for those initial set of tariffs, which affected Canada and on which we took counter tariffs, is in question, which has, of course, been our argument all along.
So what does the new court decision, the one made on Thursday, mean?
Well, it means that the status quo applies until the Supreme Court rules on the Court of International Trade ruling, which said that the president exceeded his authorities.
So what's the White House's strategy here?
Well, the White House has been using Donald Trump, as we know, he's made no bones about it. He loves tariffs, and he used tariffs as a leverage for not just trade issues, but economic issues and security issues at the same time. And he has been applying them forcefully, as we have seen since he was elected 4 months ago. And Canada, unfortunately, has been, because we're their largest trading partner, has been subject to the various sets of tariffs that he has applied since he came into office on January the 20th.
So in terms of this legal back and forth that's been going on for a while here, how is that reverberating on these tariffs? What impact is that having?
Well, the markets certainly don't like it. And as we've seen, they've been very volatile. And the profound effect for Canada, of course, is in terms of foreign investment. As you know, the Prime Minister and the Premiers, Wab Kinew as part of that, has said we need to do more investment in Canada, as we say, build back better, or build, baby, build, as the Prime Minister puts it, whether we're talking roads or rails or ports or grids or pipelines. But this needs funding, not just from governments, but from the private sector, pension funds within Canada and foreign investment. And that has really slowed in recent years because we've not been seen as a particularly attractive place to invest. And what the Prime Minister and the Premiers have agreed upon at their various meetings, and they're meeting again in the coming days, is that we've got to make Canada a more attractive place to invest in so that we can build the infrastructure that will allow us to become less reliant on the United States and will also allow us to get our goods to market. And all of this makes sense, and there's broad unanimity within Canada. We're taking on internal trade barriers, but a piece of this is being able to have the infrastructure to allow us to become more efficient and more productive.
Like you mentioned, the markets have been kind of up and down as this legal battle is going on. But what about in terms of overall economic stability? What are the ramifications of this fighting between the courts and the White House?
Sure. Well, the markets don't like uncertainty, and so the markets, when the first ruling came out, responded and said, "Oh, good, this is going to give us more certainty." But the next day, then the markets started dropping. And I looked at the markets this morning. In Asia, they were down just a little bit, and in Europe, just up a bit. What markets want and what business wants is certainty, because business, when they make decisions, they don't do it on electoral cycles of 3 or 4 years, but rather 10, 15, 25 years. So this just creates uncertainty for investment. And again, I come back, Canada, Manitoba, Winnipeg, you need funding to make the investments in infrastructure to allow the economy to be more productive.
And as a former diplomat yourself, what do you think is going through the mind of people at the Canadian Embassy in Washington right now as they kind of watch this legal battle to take place?
Well, aside from scratching your hair out, it just underlines the importance of the negotiations that are ongoing. As the Prime Minister said yesterday in the House of Commons, Dominic LeBlanc, who's been the minister charged with trying to find a new economic and security framework with the United States, those meetings are really important. It's why we've been seeking, really since Confederation, some form of or another of agreement with the United States, and we've been successful over the years, going back to the original Canada-US Free Trade Agreement, then the NAFTA, but then every year we incrementally improve our relationship with the United States. Again, you can't change geography. The United States is the biggest market in the world, the easiest market for us to access, so we do want to have a relationship with the United States, but we want one that is stable, in which there is security for the investment that, again, I've spoken about, that we need in Canada to make us more productive and allow us to trade not just with the U.S., but to trade with the rest of the world.
Colin, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Corey.
Colin Robertson is a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute and a former Canadian diplomat. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Well, the chief of Pakatawagan First Nation says people are getting desperate. Around 2,000 people were still in Pakatawagan when wildfire smoke forced its airport to shut down last night. Chief Gordy Bear says they've started taking people out by helicopter, and if that takes too long, they may have to resort to using boats. More than 300 kilometers east of Pakatawagan is Tatasqueat Cree Nation. It is the latest northern community to declare a state of emergency. Chief Doreen Spence says fire is just a kilometer away, and the community now has lost power. We'll hear more Manitoba News coming up at 7:30.
Just got a text from Chief David Monius of Pimachikamak. He says about 11 to 12 Hercules airplanes are scheduled to pick up evacuees from Norway House today. And he says, I believe the first one leaves Winnipeg around 8 a.m. today. And he says the last night he texted says that the wind was blowing at least away from the community for the time being. So that was the latest update from Chief David Monius of Pimachikamak Cree Nation. And still to come, we are going to hear from someone who's helping out evacuees here in Winnipeg get food and make ends meet. So we're going to hear that story and much, much more here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. World Report is standing by.
Well, I guess the look I'm best known for is blue steel.
What's that look like?
It's called looksmaxing, a growing trend where men want to improve how they look through everything from skincare to chin implants. The men doing it say they feel it gives them control over their bodies in an uncertain world. We'll talk about that coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. From the east to the west, Canada is burning once again, and thousands are forced out as wildfires threaten their communities. 2 provinces, Manitoba and Saskatchewan, declaring states of emergency. Fires also forcing people out of their homes in Alberta, BC, and Ontario. In Saskatchewan, an estimated 17 fires are out of control. Around 4,000 residents forced from their homes, mainly in the northeast region. The province's largest fire, more than 200,000 hectares, is now threatening the village of Candle Lake. Resident Joe Rabinski, one of the residents, packing up and leaving.
I think people are very anxious, very concerned. Those that, everybody's doing their own due diligence as far as being ready to leave at the drop of a hat. I know there's vehicles that are loaded with, kind of the essentials. I know people have been hauling things out of here for several days already. People are scared, and rightfully so.
In Manitoba, more than 17,000 people out of their homes. There are more than 20 fires burning in the province, 13 listed as out of control. Premier Wab Kinew says finding places for evacuees to go is a challenge. Josh Crabb has the latest.
The city of Dauphin in western Manitoba is one of several communities hosting wildfire evacuees. More than 60 evacuees from a small community in northern Manitoba called Sheridan are here. They were forced out by fire on Sunday night. People like Philomene Leponzi had to leave with an hour's notice. Leponzi says it's been really stressful.
Well, my husband's back in Pugadawagan. I haven't made contact with him yet. It's been about 2 days.
The deputy mayor of Sheridan says the fire moved in too close for comfort Thursday morning because of high winds and threatened the community. Cheryl Matheson says firefighters were able to protect homes and properties, but it's been hard hearing the updates and being so far away from home. She's more than 6 hours away in Dauphin.
We have a wildfire base in town, so we're used to seeing the helicopters come and go. But right now, it's outside our door.
Most evacuees are staying in Winnipeg. The province says there are 22 active fires in Manitoba. There have been more than 100 so far. That's well above the average of 80 for this time in the season. And with the fire danger still extremely high, Manitoba is imposing tougher measures to restrict travel into the backcountry and on trails and waterways. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Dauphin.
We could learn that the man charged with murder following the Vancouver Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy is fit to stand trial today. 11 people were killed in the car ramming at the end of April. The suspect charged with multiple counts of second-degree murder. Georgie Smythe has more.
It's been a little over a month since 11 people were killed at a Vancouver street festival when they were run over by an SUV that crashed into a tightly packed crowd at a Lapu-Lapu Day event. Dozens were injured and 7 people remain in hospital. 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe has been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. At his first appearance 5 days after the incident, Lowe's lawyer asked the court for an assessment of his client to make sure he is fit to stand trial. Rebecca McConkie is a criminal lawyer and vice president of the Trial Lawyers Association of BC. She says the test has a low threshold by design and is about ensuring a fair trial.
The focus is on the person's mental state and cognitive capacity now. It's not looking at what state they were in at the time of the alleged offense. It's whether or not they are able to essentially understand the process that's happening to them as they go through the judicial process now.
The assessment is expected to be shared in court today. It's important to remember that this analysis is totally different to a person being found not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. If Lowe is found not fit to stand trial, it will not be the end of criminal proceedings, but the beginning of another legal process. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Overseas, Hamas says it's taking another look at a proposed ceasefire reportedly backed by Israel after initially rejecting it. The U.S. brokered deal would see a 60-day ceasefire implemented and more aid shipments into Gaza. Hamas would also return a number of Israeli hostages. Tom Perry reports.
From Gaza, fresh images of desperation, men in vehicles, on bikes and on foot, rushing off with sacks of flour snatched from an aid truck along a beachside road. Months of bombardment and an Israeli stranglehold on humanitarian assistance have left Palestinians living in dire conditions, though now there is some hope for relief. A potential deal brokered by the U.S. that would see Hamas release some of the 58 Israeli hostages, living and dead, that it still holds in Gaza in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire and increased shipments of humanitarian aid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly told the families of Israeli hostages his government backs the deal. Moshe Emilio Levy's brother, Omri Moran, was taken by Hamas on October 7th.
I want this to end, and I hope we'll reach a resolution. Hamas needs to understand that for the sake of the people in Gaza and for the sake of the future of cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians, they have to let the hostages go.
Hamas says it's reviewing the proposed deal. The group's leadership reportedly not satisfied with provisions around aid delivery and talks toward a permanent ceasefire. For the people of Gaza and the families of Israeli hostages, more waiting and more desperation. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The U.S. says it's getting fed up with the lack of progress in Russia-Ukraine peace talks. American officials are threatening to walk away from the table if no deal is reached soon. The warring countries are scheduled to hold another round of talks in Istanbul on Monday, but Ukraine says it hasn't seen Russia's promised proposal for ending the war. Anna Cunningham has more.
If Russia makes the wrong decision to continue this catastrophic war, the United States will have to consider stepping back from our negotiation efforts.
The acting deputy US ambassador John Kelly speaking at the UN Security Council late Thursday. Not for the first time, the US expressing its deep level of frustration at this ongoing war. Last weekend, Russia carried out the biggest drone and missile attack on Ukraine in the war to date. Moscow and Kyiv delegations are due to meet again in Istanbul Monday for direct talks. Caroline Levitt, the White House spokesperson, says it is happening.
That is a meeting the president encouraged and urged.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russia of deception by failing to hand over its peace settlement proposal ahead of the meeting. US President Donald Trump said this was promised by Russian President Vladimir Putin when they spoke last week.
Russia is not signaling any genuine intention to stop its war,
says Kristina Hayovshin, Ukraine's deputy UN ambassador. But Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Dembenzia insists the ball is in Ukraine's court. Overnight in Ukraine, more Russian strikes. In Kharkiv, a tram depot was hit. They don't care, says Lyubov Beletsova, a tram driver.
President Putin should take the deal,
warns UN Ambassador Kelly. If talks proceed, Turkey says it's ready to host a leaders' summit, which could see Zelensky, Putin and Trump meet. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
The collapse of a glacier in Switzerland this week has renewed focus on the role that global warming plays in such collapses and the increasing dangers. The village of Blatten was evacuated as the nearby mountainside gave way and buried much of the community. Scientists say melting glaciers will raise sea levels for decades, but the loss of inland glaciers impacts communities that rely on them for drinking water and agriculture. They say there is no way to stop the melting. And finally,
Éclaircissement.
Éclaircissement. E-C-L-A-I-R-C-I-S-S-E-M-E-N-T. Éclaircissement.
That is correct.
Well, that is how you also spell redemption at the 97th Scripps National Spelling Bee in the U.S. The winner, 13-year-old Faizan Zaki. He wins this year after finishing as a runner-up last year. Not only that, he was nearly eliminated a few rounds earlier when he misspelled another word. He only stayed in the competition when the two other remaining contestants also got words wrong. Zaki goes home with a $50,000 prize.
How are you feeling right now?
I don't even know. I don't know what to say. I'm just really happy.
How hard has he worked to get here, especially after
And éclaircissement, the winning word, it's defined as a clearing up of something obscure.
So, what's next for you, Faizan?
No idea. I'm probably going to stay up the entire night or something.
Oh, believe me, you will.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC NEWS.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcia Marcusa. We have another hot, dry day ahead in Manitoba. We are still, of course, under a provincial state of emergency. We're going to try to get you up to speed on everything that's going on across the province. Coming up first, we do have an interview with David Monius, the chief of Pimicikamak Cree Nation, to update us on that situation, on the evacuation situation in his community. Also this hour on the show.
I choose not to live in a world of fear, but this is a fearful thing.
We'll hear from a local organization tasked with feeding fire evacuees. That story coming up this half hour as well. Also, Olympic medalist and Winnipegger Desiree Scott is stepping away from the international soccer pitch, but not before one last home game. We had her join us live in studio yesterday. That conversation coming up this hour on Information Radio. Up first, though, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, desperation is the word used by the chief of Puckatawagan First Nation. Around 2,000 people are still in Puckatawagan as wildfire smoke has forced the airport there to shut down. Chief Gordy Bear says they've started taking people out by helicopter, and if that takes too long, he says they'll have to resort to using boats. The deputy mayor of Sheridan says it has been a difficult time as fire is right on that community's doorstep. Cheryl Matheson says it's also been tough for people forced out and who are now in Dauphin. A shortage of places to stay in Dauphin means evacuees don't know if they'll have somewhere to sleep tonight. I'll be back with more on these stories and other news from Manitoba coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Abby Adeyemi is in with a look at your weather. Hey there, Abby.
Another hot and hazy day across the province today. Sunshine on the way, but the smoke is an issue. It's hanging in the air, especially in the north and the southeastern part of the province where we have that special air quality statement in effect. Smoke is causing poor air quality, making it hard to breathe in places like Flin Flon, the Puckatawagan, and even all the way down to the White Shell. So if you're having trouble breathing, try to limit your outdoor experience and exposure. In Winnipeg at this time, 18. It's kind of supposed to be clear. If you look at the sun right now, it's really struggling. It's really orange out there. As we move through the day, we're going to see sunshine, but this haze is going to be hanging around, and the afternoon is going to be hot. We're warming up to 30 degrees today in the city.
Thank you very much, Abby. Looking to your commute right now, Provincial Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam is currently closed, and evacuees will be able to travel from Split Lake to Gillam, though, so you still can go if you are leaving Split Lake or to Tasqueac this morning on that closed road from your community to Gillam. As well, here in the city, southbound Pembina at Abinogi-Mikana overpass, it is closed, so you want to plan an alternative route, and you expect big delays during rush hour. And Louise Bridge still closed until June 1st. If you see anything else going on, give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. Still to come here on Information Radio, we are also going to have an evacuee and counselor from Flin Flon join us at 7:50 as well. But first, yesterday on the show, we had Chief David Monius of Pimicikamak Cree Nation join us on the show to talk about his community's efforts. And at that time, there were still 767 people in his community that were trying to get out. And he joins us now for an update on the fire and the evacuation situation. Good morning to you, Chief Monius.
Good morning.
So tell us, what's the latest on the evacuation situation in your community?
Well, right now we have people that are, there's approximately 300,332 people still on the list at the Norrie House to be evacuated. So we have about 11 to 12 Hercules that are scheduled to go and pick those people up. I think it starts around 8 a.m. this morning. I think at least the first Hercules leaves around 8 a.m. To go pick up people. and we still have approximately anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people in Cross Lake. Because some have somehow made it back, and but I know that the RCMP were stopping people from returning this way.
So in terms of, let's start with the Norway House. So those people there, do you expect all of them to be out? Because I'm guessing there's only a couple Hercules planes that we have in the province. So they're making rounds back and forth, kind of taxiing folks, and that's to Winnipeg?
Yeah, they said, that's what they told us, 11 to 12 Hercules, and I don't know how many, it was the big one or the small one. I know there was 3 yesterday. The 2 smaller Hercules were carrying anywhere from 80 and under passengers, under 80. The other one could carry capacity was about 100 passengers, the big Hercules. So that depends on how many people get on, they let on. Doesn't mean that they will go full capacity. Because some people have some carry-ons, but luggage and stuff like that.
And in terms of, so do you expect everyone to be at least out of Norway House by the end of the day, or how long do you think that process will take?
It'll go on all day. I mean, it's basically that they go from early morning to late in the evening, and I don't know how long it takes. About one Hercules to get in there. It's about an hour and a half from Winnipeg to landing in North House, and an hour and a half to go back to Winnipeg or Brandon. And so then there's only 2 then, or 3. But it'd be about, that's about 3 hours for one plane.
Okay. And in terms of the folks still in Cross Lake, I understand you're among them. What's the plan for people still in Cross Lake?
Well, we have I contacted Perimeter Airlines Aviation. I asked them if they can send some planes our way, because we didn't have any planes scheduled to come and get us here in Cross Lake by Red Cross. So I started looking at the other airlines to see if they could come. And I was able to have 2 crew the Norway House yesterday, 37-seaters. So that helped out a little bit. So I asked them to see if it's clear here today, if they could come to Cross Lake, and we will get a list. We have a list going, and they would come and get our people here.
And
so that's what we're working on right now. So.
Okay, so the airport itself, it's in better condition than it was yesterday. There's a chance planes could land, or
yesterday we had clear for early in the morning. We couldn't have the helicopter from Wildfire land, so that was disappointing. And in the afternoon, starting about noon time, the wind changed direction. So we had clear skies, clear blue skies. We were so happy that easier to breathe, easier on the throat, right? And but we know that it was blowing away from us. But it's stretching from I don't know if you know where Chinbig and Monego is. From Monego, it was blowing westward with the easterly winds, and it was blowing about 50 kilometers along the highway 374. So if you know the territory, you'll see how big the fire is.
Right. And in terms of the imminent threat of the fire right now, how concerned are you? I understand, I know you sent a couple pictures my way. You can see it from the community, but how close is it getting now? And you know, how worried are you that, you know, it could hit the community?
We're constantly monitoring, because that's it's ranked 6th, the highest you can have. You have swirls, tornado-like winds, and that it creates itself, and then it also spews out the fireballs, and so you have spotting that it moves front, right? So it's continuing to move towards our direction despite the wind blowing against it, but the wind is slowing it down. But the wind changes frequently, and then they'll be coming towards our way again, probably at the end of the day or evening. So that means more smoke and more fire coming towards our way again.
And how concerned are you, about making sure that you won't be able to get everyone out before the fire comes closer? What's the timeline looking in terms of getting everyone out of Cross Lake?
Yeah, it's very concerning. We're always on the phone with the officials and advocating for more water bombers to come and try and put it out, because we were asking about see if we can get a convoy along that highway, But after yesterday, when I went on a helicopter, I seen there's no way we could get through that. So we're asking the government of Canada to see if they can get their national water bombers to see if they can come and douse out that area where the road is, to give us a chance to see if we can get people out that way. Just much like the way they did with the Flin Flon, they water bombed that area, the road so much that they were able to get people through there.
And what's been the response from the government, the federal government on that? Is it look likely that'll happen?
Well, yes, last night we were talking, and they said they would be working on that.
Okay.
That's the word that we got.
Okay. Well, Chief Monius, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, and stay safe, and all the best to your community.
All right, thank you for having me.
That is Chief David Monius of Pimicikamak Cree Nation. Well, up next on the show, 7:20 right now here on Information Radio. We're going to keep talking about evacuees and how people are stepping up to help. Need food? We got you. That's the motto for Community Helpers Unite, and they are putting it to the test. The Winnipeg group is cooking for people who have had to leave their homes because of wildfires, and Brandy Beaubier is the director and CEO of Community Helpers Unite. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
So how did it come about that you're helping feed evacuees?
Well, we've been very lucky to, we were reached out to by the Red Cross about 3 years ago to start catering for folks when Peguis was evacuated due to flooding. And when, I think it was about mid-2022, the first time we catered for the Red Cross. And it was because there were a lot of complaints about the food, being like really fast food type stuff all the time, and no fruits, no vegetables, things like that, no comfort food, and so they found out from somebody about the food that we make for the relatives that live at Evacuee warming shelter, 190 Disraeli, and so we were able to start catering for the Red Cross and proved our worth, that we love to feed the relatives with kindness, dignity, and respect like family, because they deserve it. And so we've been called for numerous small evacuations, small responses. And just when they have people that are in hotels that don't have food services on site, that's when they would call a caterer like us. And so with this response, though, it was like, okay, we need you to feed 300 people. There's tons of people coming from Flin Flon. And so we have a whole site that you're going to take care of.
What's that like, having to step up so quickly to do that?
I got the call at like 8 o'clock at night on Wednesday night to start for lunch on Thursday.
Wow. And so
it was fast. It was fast turnaround. So
did you have to pull an all-nighter?
No, not at all. No, we have an amazing staff. We have a production kitchen with an amazing staff, and our kitchens are open 365 days a year from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. So when I got the call, our kitchen was already closed, but my operational culinary director, Kyle, and I were able to just go on the phone, go over what we have, what we can make for lunch, basically get through the first meal, and then that buys us enough time to place orders.
And tell us a little bit about today, because you're still cooking for folks. What's today look like for you?
Oh yeah, so today we're so by noon yesterday, we had our plan for the next 5 days already mapped out. So today, yesterday we ended up doing lunch and dinner. Today we're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but because of the short notice, we have our partners. We have a very good partnership with one of the Tim Hortons stores that provides us with food when we can't do like a breakfast or something. So they're actually delivering breakfast on our behalf today.
Okay.
And then lunchtime we got chicken noodle soup and BLT deli sandwiches with coleslaw and cookies.
Oh, yum.
And then dinner tonight we have chicken penne Alfredo with seasoned carrots, Greek salad, garlic toast, and dessert.
Wow.
So that way we know that they're getting good comfort food that's going to help them just be full, feel that love that comes from food, that medicine that comes from food, because they're all in a distressing time.
And how many people are you expecting to feed today?
Today we're feeding 300 people.
Wow, that's amazing. And before I let you go here, do you have a message to listeners, either evacuees or those wanting to help at all?
Any listeners, if you are looking to volunteer, looking to help, We're good for right now. We have a crew of volunteers that we lean on pretty regularly. But if you are looking to help, there's a lot of different organizations that are posting on social media that they're collecting donations for hygiene supplies and clothing and shoes and toys and games for kids and activities. Reach out to anyone and everyone. If an organization is posting about it online, don't hesitate. We also are always looking for, everybody is also looking for transportation. So vehicles that can transport donations to and from the evacuation site. And also let's think about the animals, because there's a lot of animals that have to be left behind. So a lot of the animal rescue groups are looking for food and plastic buckets to send with water. And otherwise, to the evacuees, we love you and we're here for you.
Well, Brandy, thank you so much for the work you do, and all the best in the busy times ahead.
Thank you so much.
Brandy Beaubier is the director and CEO of Community Helpers Unite. And if you, of course, are an evacuee, 211 is the number to call if you need help, resources, information. If you're looking for somewhere to stay, somewhere to eat, that is the number to call. And those people at the other end of the line will help you get in touch with those resources. Well, 7:26 right now. Let's switch gears to sports because there is still the Stanley Cup playoffs are on the go right now, and Scott Regehr joins us right now. Hello.
Hey, Corey.
So a rematch is on deck for the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, get ready for Oilers-Panthers 2.0, Corey. Edmonton ensured it last night by eliminating Dallas in the Western Championship for the second year running. Unlike last year, the Oilers did not hold back on touching the Clarence Campbell Bowl that comes with it. And the rationale is pretty simple. Superstition dictates you do not touch a trophy until you win the one that really matters. So, how's Edmonton, after making it to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final last year against Florida, feeling about their chances? Here's Captain Connor McDavid.
Well, I think we were better for going through last year. It was a great learning experience, and it's really driven us all year. I think this run has felt different than last year. It's felt very normal. It's felt very, I don't want to say boring, but, it hasn't been as emotional. We haven't had the highs and we haven't had the lows. That's put us in a good position. Those games can be emotionally draining. We're not drained. We got as good a chance as they do.
A very measured, laser-focused sounding McDavid there. I do not buy his drama-free take on the playoffs, though, where the Oilers played goaltender roulette for a while and have just lost their feistiest forward in Zach Hyman to injury. But I do think, and this is wood on my desk, that they are going to end Canada's 31-year-long Cup drought. More on that next week. The finals begin Wednesday in Edmonton, Corey, which this time around, the Oilers will have the home ice advantage.
Well, now to the CFL, where the Bombers play their final preseason game tonight.
Yes, they do. In Saskatchewan against the Riders, a handful of veterans, Corey, will not dress, such as Brady Oliveira, Willie Jefferson, Kyrie Wilson. There will be another making his preseason debut. The star receiver Dalton Schoen is expected to start and see his first game action back from injury. Schoen, of course, tore his ACL in week 3 of last year and has been out ever since. So a kickoff Central Time, 8 o'clock, with final roster cuts coming for Winnipeg tomorrow.
Okay. And soccer will be in the spotlight this weekend as well.
The Handel-inspired theme to the Champions League, Corey, which we'll hear played ahead of tomorrow afternoon's final in Munich. No German team will be involved, though, nor will there be one from England or Spain. It's been a decade and a half since we've been able to say that. Tomorrow's match to determine the best club in Europe, and really the best club on the planet, will be between Paris Saint-Germain and Inter Milan. And that is not the only footy match to look forward to. At Princess Otto Stadium tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, we'll say goodbye to Desiree Scott, the Winnipeg legend, the 37-year-old who will be suiting up for Canada in a friendly match against Haiti. Scott, part of those 2 bronze medal winning and gold medal winning Olympic teams. Here's one of her teammates, Vanessa Gilles.
Having leaders that make you feel seen and heard and make you feel appreciated and valued. There's not that many in the world that have that skill and that ability to be so empathetic to everybody and treat everybody like they mean a lot. And Desi, from day one, no matter who you are, has that.
Desiree Scott and the Canadian team playing against Haiti tomorrow in conditions the Haitians will probably be more comfortable in, 31 degrees. It's a 2 o'clock kickoff. Just looked into tickets. $30 will get you in the door. And if you go as a group, even cheaper than that. And what an opportunity to say goodbye to a Canadian legend.
And fun fact, she's actually on our show in about 15 minutes or so.
Hey, all the better. All the better.
She was in the studio yesterday. I asked her, she scored her first ever goal, like in a professional goal. I'm like, hey, do you feel pressure to score this weekend again? She's like, nah, I'm good. I got my one goal.
Good to go. Got it done.
Got it done. Checked it off the bucket list. Scott, thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
That is Scott Reguer at our CBC Sports Desk. Still to come, we'll chat with a Flin Flon evacuee and, of course, Desiree Scott as well. But for the latest on the wildfire situation, time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 17 degrees. Final Friday of May, and it is going to be a scorcher. Today in Winnipeg, sunshine, hazy, with a high of 30. Widespread smoke moving in tonight. The chief of the northern community of Puckatawagan says they're getting desperate. Wildfire has forced the community to shut down its airport. About 2,000 people were still in the community as of last evening. They had been ordered out, but Chief Gordy Bear says winds pushed the smoke towards the airfield.
The smoke has engulfed the airport, so we're getting desperate now. It's getting rougher. We're going to be heading to the lake pretty shortly. If nothing turns out, if nothing puts the flame out, there's high timber where they're burning.
Bear says about 200 people were evacuated before the airport closed. One of them, Rochelle Colombe, says her community was surrounded by smoke and flames as the plane took off. Colombe's was the last plane to arrive in Brandon before Puckatawagan's airport closed last evening.
You could see like the smoke, the two places start up again, and it's like getting really closer to the airport. And as we were flying over, you can see the flames and how close it's getting to the airport.
Now, Colombe says her partner did not get out. He is a medical van driver and will be one of the last to leave Puckatawagan. Tataskwiak Cree Nation is the latest northern community to declare a state of emergency. Chief Doreen Spence says the fire is just a kilometer away and the community now has lost power.
I have been reaching out to Grand Chiefs. I have been reached out to the Premier to let them know about our situation. So basically, I don't know what's going to happen in the next while. We obviously need additional candles, flashlights. We need generators because a lot of people are worried about their food spoiling.
Spence says only 200 of Tataskwiak's 2,400 members have managed to get out. A stretch of Provincial Road 280 going from nearby Thompson to Gillam has been closed because of the wildfire. The deputy mayor of Sheridan says fire is surrounding her community and evacuees may have to be moved again. 60 of the 85 people who live in the northern town were forced out with an hour's notice to Dauphin earlier this week. Cheryl Matheson says in the 15 years she's lived there, she's never seen anything like this.
We have a wildfire base in town, so we're used to seeing the helicopters come and go. But right now, it's outside our door. I have a fishing lodge in Sheridan, and I literally have been watching the flames through my security cameras.
Matheson says most of the people in Sheridan are used to living in a remote area and are having a hard time adjusting to being in a city the size of Dauphin. She says they may have to move again because the hotel where they're staying is booked up for an event this weekend. Well, Century Arena in Winnipeg is one of the places where the evacuees have been put up. Known as Handyman in Flin Flon, Andy says he got just a few minutes to pack when the evacuation order came this week.
I just took what I needed. I figured my house was going to be okay. Well organized, actually. It went really fast, and they have the town pretty well cleaned out pretty quick. Everybody followed what they were supposed to do.
Brandon Perry, also from Flin Flon, says he only managed to take his iPad and 2 sweaters.
A little distraught because everything happened so fast and didn't get to pack very well. But I don't know, trying to keep hopes high and hopefully we have a home to go back to.
Perry says things back home were pretty smoky and everyone was frantic while they were trying to leave. Flin Flon's hospital and 2 personal care homes are also evacuated. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says everyone is getting the medical help they need. Asseguera says healthcare staff worked through the night into Thursday morning to make sure everyone got out. 71 patients were in hospital and almost 70 in the 2 personal care homes in Flin Flon. Asseguera says some healthcare staff are staying behind to care for those who are fighting the fires.
These are Manitobans who are actively worrying about their own families. They're worrying about their own well-being, and they're putting that aside to focus on making sure that they can be there for Manitobans and really, truly stepping up in heroic ways.
Asseguera says other healthcare workers who have been forced out promise to still care for their patients even while they're away. The patients and residents have been moved to healthcare facilities across Manitoba. Now, in all, 17,000 northern Manitobans are out of their homes. As the province, as we know, is still under a state of emergency, and firefighters are already battling 103 blazes so far this season. That is well above the 20-year annual average of 80 for this time of year. You can get the latest on the fire situation and other news from Manitoba. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That is Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, sitting in this morning for Marcy Marcusa. Well, let's check in with Abby Adeyemi, who's got a look at our forecast today.
Hot and hazy across the province. Sunshine already making its presence felt in most of the regions, but smoke from wildfires hanging in the air, especially in the northern part of the province and towards the southeast. That's why we have that special air quality in effect for those areas where smoke is causing poor visibility and making it difficult for a few people to breathe in places like the Flin Flon all the way down to the White Shell. So if you're having health concerns, I'd advise you limit your time outdoors. Winnipeg, 18 degrees, hazy outside. As we move through the morning, we're going to see sunshine. A bit of haze is still going to hang around into the evening period. Temperatures warming close to 31 degrees for Winnipeg today. And for tomorrow, another warm one will see 30s. Across the southern regions, Brandon, Dauphin, all the way down to Gimli, hazy morning this morning. The sun is already out. Temperature sitting between 14 and 18 degrees in most of these areas. Now, as the day goes on, it's going to be warming up in these areas close to 30 degrees. And then tracking conditions in the northern part of the province, the Flin Flon, Thompson, Churchill, conditions quite vary. 8 degrees in Thompson at this time. Churchill is at 1 and sunny. The day brings a mix of sun and clouds across the northern part of the province. And we'll see highs ranging from 14 degrees in Churchill to 30 in the the Thompson area. There's also a chance of thunderstorm in the forecast somewhere this afternoon, so prepare for that. But smoky conditions will definitely continue into the overnight. Across board, hazy and warm from Churchill to Winnipeg today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adeyemi behind the glass. Also, Sierra Sanders is our director, the studio director this morning, and hello to May McKillop as well, who's helping tech and direct as well today. Let's also take a look at your commute. So the biggest thing to keep an eye out for, particularly in the north this morning, is that Provincial Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam is closed because of that wildfire at Split Lake to Tasqueac. However, keep in mind, though, if you are evacuating from Split Lake or to Tasqueac, you are still allowed to take that road to get to Gillam. So that is an important thing to keep in mind this morning. Here down south in Winnipeg, southbound Pembina at Abinogi-Mikina overpass, it's closed. So plan alternative routes and expect delays during rush hour. As well, southbound Kenniston and Lowson Crescent, there's a stall blocking the southbound turn lane. So keep right to get around that. If you have any other updates for us, or if you're impacted by the fires, we're opening up our traffic line to also just hear from you about the fire situation and how you're impacted. 204-788-3093. Still to come here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. We are going to have Desiree Scott join us ahead of her big game on Saturday. That is going to be in honor of her. Team Canada is playing against Haiti. It's going to be her last big Team Canada game, and it's going to be a pretty emotional game for her, and we're going to hear all about that coming up. Also, after 8 o'clock, we're going to, even though there's crisis going on, it is important to take some time to celebrate. And if you are starting to plan your Pride weekend, you'll want to tune in to the show after 8 o'clock, where one of the main stage performers is joining us in studio for a live music performance and interview about her connection to Pride. So stay tuned for that live performance. Hopefully it's the bit of a pick-me-up we need after a very heavy week. But next up here on the show, it's been a difficult and scary week for many Manitobans, and thousands have been forced to leave their homes due to out-of-control wildfires. And when one Manitoba family heard that their neighbors to the north in Flin Flon were being evacuated, they knew they had to help out. Darren Hubsher and his family own Sweet Acres. It's a sweet corn and you-pick strawberry farm just outside of Swan River, and they've opened up their farm for evacuees who need a safe place to park and rest. And Gail Youngsworth is one of those evacuees, and they both join us now. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Darren, I'll start with you. So, at what point did you realize, like, hey, I gotta step up and help out here?
Well, I can't take full credit for that. My daughter, Tanisha, she gave us a call, and she said, there's people coming down from Flin Flon from the north, and we are already, we're a Harvest Host member. So, we're used to having campers in our yard, and so I said, hey, that's a great idea. Put a post out there, and the response, at least on the Facebook side of things, was unbelievable. Like there's 800 shares, so there's a lot of people that were concerned, not just ourselves, by sharing that post.
And how many people now, at least at this point, have showed up on your yard?
Not many. We have actually only had one, I would say this: yesterday morning when I got up and I went through town, there were lots of campers that were just parked in parking lots.
Right.
And they were gone shortly after that because they had a destination.
Mm-hmm.
But as you'll hear from, the evacuee here, La Pas is buzzing with campers because, if you're going to just stay in a camper for a few days, you're probably going to stay closer to home.
Right. Gail, I want to turn to you. So tell us a little bit about your evacuation experience and how you came to stay on Darren's yard.
Well, it's been an adventure, let me tell you that. So for me, I had gone Monday to Jam Lake, Saskatchewan to camp with some friends at their place. And during our time out there, when I left, I knew there was a fire north of Flin Flon. It was near the Creighton dump. And it was, fairly small at that point, and whatever they were doing to it at the time. Got out to Jam Lake. By Tuesday, we were hearing word that fire had progressed substantially, and we were seeing pictures of flames right off our perimeter highway and coming very close to infrastructure, Multicrete, kind of our Timber Lane area, which is the commercial area there, our SPCA. And then, so then we were kind of on an alert, and we got word that the road towards Prince Albert was now blocked. The road to Flin Flon was open. Everything was good. Stay put. We were in a good spot and whatever. From that, it led to announcements on the radio by Mayor Fiddler and Mayor Fontaine that Creighton was being mandatory evacuated, as was Flin Flon being mandatory evacuated. Just prior to hearing that announcement, though, we had got a call from a friend who's on the volunteer fire department, or previously was. And he said, if I was you guys, I'd get out of Jan and get back to Flin Flon. So we quickly threw our stuff together. We jumped in our vehicles. We headed out. We got onto the Hanson Lake Road, headed towards Flin Flon. We got north of, we didn't get quite that far. Our lead car with two of my girlfriends in it got past Powistic to about the Granite Lake area. And they said the flames were right to the highway, about to jump the road, and the smoke was just billowing black. So they thought about it, and then they thought, nope, we're turning around. So they turned around, gave as they approached us, gave us the hand. We turned around. We all went back to Jam Lake. They started to give us the word that, in preparation, get boats in the water, be ready if this moves really fast. Within seconds of that road was closed. So now we're basically trapped because we have two roads out. Both roads were blocked. Then we heard that Flin Flon was being evacuated, and of course they have to go number 10 south because they couldn't come the Hanson Lake Road because of closure. So then we sat at John Lake just wondering what we should do, and getting some mixed messages.
That must have been a little bit scary, like knowing that that fire's closing in.
It's very scary. And when you know you only have so many roads out, and those are now closed on you, it was very frightening.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so what we did end up doing was I said, I'm tired of the mixed messages. I'm just going to drive out to the road and talk to the guys blocking the road. We drove out. We had heard that they had opened up the Creighton Road for Flin Flon Creighton residents wanting to get the Saskatchewan way to family. So he hadn't had any indication of that, but he said, you're welcome to head towards Prince Albert and try to get on the Cut Across Road, which goes up by LaRange. When I went back, we rallied the girls. Within about 5 minutes, we were packed up, gone, and that's what we headed out to do, not knowing if we were going to get turned back or make it through.
Oh, man.
We got down to there. The road was still blocked, the one that carries on to Caribou Creek. We went up the road that heads towards LaRange and cut across to Highway number 2. So now we're in the clear in that process. There was many times that the smoke was very, very thick. The dust on the road was horrible. The only advantage was there was only one-way traffic going because everybody was going out. We got onto the number 2 highway and came by the Evacuee fire, and that was absolutely horrific. The flames were, I don't know, maybe a kilometer from the highway, but the flames were literally 3 stories high in the air. It was just raging.
Yeah, and then at what point did Darren kind of come into your life?
So Darren and Vicky. So I ended up in Rostern for the night with my 5 girlfriends at another friend's place. She hosted us overnight. And then the girl, so where are we all going, right? We've got family still back in that had been evacuated from Flin Flon. We're trying to figure out a plan. So for myself and my friend Debbie, her family is in Baker's Narrows. So we decided to drive across to Prince Albert, from Rostern. We came across to the Paw, and her family met me there. And then she was going home. She gave me her vehicle, and I was going to head south to Onanol, where my family now all was. So my daughter, I said, you know what? I'm getting tired. I think I'm just going to find somewhere to sleep in the van down in Swan River. And my daughter sent me the post and said, well, here's this Sweet Acres, and these people have offered up their place. So I rolled in about, 9:30 last night, you guys.
Wow.
9:30 last night, and instantly was offered a bedroom.
Great.
Instantly offered a glass of wine, and I said, I'm good in my van. I got all my camp stuff and whatever. So, so I had a great night's sleep, and I got a little tour last night, and now I'm enjoying a coffee in their home.
Beautiful. Well, that's such a lovely story, and thanks so much for sharing, Gail, and Darren, to you too. It's wonderful that you've opened up your home, and if people are wanting to come by, what information do you want? If there's an evacuee listening that's like, I need somewhere to stay, just quickly here in the last 30 seconds here, Darren, where do you want people to know?
Sure. Well, my cell number is 204-281-4440. So you can just text me and say you need a place. We've got a big backyard here. We've got some water. We've got power. So we can do that. You can also message me on Facebook. Check out our Facebook page, Sweet Acres, and you can send a message that way as well.
Darren, thank you so much, and all the best. And the best to you as well, Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is Darren Hubscher, and he is the owner of Sweet Acres in Swan River, and also Gail Youngsworth is an evacuee from the Flin Flon area. Well, 7:48 right now. Let's take a quick pivot here. And speaking of pivots, I guess, do you pivot soccer? After 18 years and 3 Olympic medals for Canada, hometown soccer player Desiree Scott had a big moment last month.
The corner kick. From the penalty area, looking towards that back post, is flicked on, and Manor off the crossbar. The ball's so close to the Scott, and it's in the back of the nets.
That was Desiree Scott scoring her first professional goal with Ottawa Rapid FC in the Northern Super League in April, a big feat for a defender. Scott came out of retirement to play for Ottawa in the inaugural Northern Super League season. She also spent 7 pro seasons playing defensive midfielder for the Kansas City Current in the National Women's Soccer League. And now she's decided to retire as an international player. And tomorrow afternoon, the Canadian women's national team will honor her in a friendly match against Haiti. Desiree stopped by the studio yesterday because she's back in her hometown, and I first asked her what was going through her mind leading up to that goal.
Yeah, it was off a set piece, a corner kick, and they have me on the goalkeeper, which is not usually where I'm at, but they're like, you're going to get a goal from one of these times. So I just remember being in there. I got a touch on one of the flicks, and I saw it go closer and closer to the line, and I just remember being like, I have to get this ball across the line no matter what. Body, everything, like people are coming through, and I wasn't doing anything to not score that goal, so it was awesome.
And what was that like for you? Because it's your first, at the end of a very illustrious career. Wow.
Yeah, that was one thing I said I couldn't retire until I did. So, no, I just wanted to know what that feeling was like. You know, Christine Sinclair's of the world, so many people have, and I didn't have anything. So to be able to get that goal in my inaugural season, home opener, I think it was incredible. Yeah.
What's that like as a defender, right? Like, obviously you work very hard, you get a lot of credit, you've won medals and things like that, but often it is the Christine Sinclairs, like you said, that get the glory for the goals. But defender, you don't get that kind of glory. So was that goal for you kind of that little taste, or have you always been happy to be the one who works hard but doesn't necessarily get the big accolades, you would per se?
Yeah, you know, as a holding mid, I think there's a lot of dirty work in that position, and you just are kind of that connector between the defense and the forwards. So I love my position. I love that I'm able to just keep things moving. But yeah, you want to know what that feels like to score, of course.
And now you got it.
Yeah, it's been great.
So another exciting moment. It's been a pretty exciting week for you. You actually met King Charles while he was visiting. Tell me about that. How'd that happen?
Yeah, very exciting week. King Charles was in the nation's capital. I was approached by the Canadian Olympic Committee to do one of the ceremonial hockey events that he was doing in the community. And so I was able to go there, shake his hand, meet him, and have a little fun with some of the local kids who were playing hockey there. It was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And now you're back home here. So let's turn to the match this weekend. So how are you feeling ahead of the big, I guess, friendly game, but a big game nonetheless?
Yeah, I think a lot of players don't get to really write their own script and how they want to end their career. And I've been very fortunate with the national team setting me up for a game here in my hometown. We've only been here twice before. So to be able to put on the red and white one more time for friends and family, it's really going to be just a celebration, a chance to say thank you for all that this country has given me over the years. And thank you to all the fans and people who have supported my career along the way. It's going to be great.
What are your hopes for the future of Team Canada soccer, but also, women's soccer in general?
Yeah, I think since 2012, I think this national team really put Canada and the sport on the map, and you really saw its popularity rise. You saw people being involved in sport, but it is one of the country's favorite sports along with hockey, and I think there's already a huge participation in that. But now I think what's beautiful is that we have that pathway from grassroots all the way up to the pros, and I truly do think if you see what's possible, it encourages you, it motivates you a little bit more. So I think now there's just a lot more opportunities for eyes to be seen on players that maybe had not been seen in the past. Hopefully re-energizes players to dream big and want to play pro, because that option is here. And yeah, just continuing to funnel the system into the national team. I think there's a lot of eyes that are going to now be seen, and it's just really awesome to see.
In terms of what's next for you, let people know kind of the next coming months, years. Well, what's your plan?
Yeah, my plan is to stay obviously involved in the game. I've got one season here to wrap up with Ottawa Rapid, and I want to maybe win a championship with them and help solidify this league and grow it in year one. But then maybe get into some coaching, some broadcast stuff within the sport, and help grow the game here in Winnipeg as well.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much, Desiree, for coming in today, and best of luck in your hometown game.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
That was Desiree Scott, a 3-time Olympic medalist and pro soccer player and Winnipegger. She stopped by the studio yesterday. She'll take the field with Team Canada for the final time tomorrow against Haiti. And tickets are still available for the game. You can head to Ticketmaster to get those tickets. Kickoff is at 2 p.m. And we will play this, actually, an extended version of this interview today on Up to Speed as well. So tune in this afternoon to Up to Speed from 3 to 6. You can hear a more lengthy interview with Desiree Scott this afternoon on Up to Speed.
I want you in the AM, PM, weekday, weekend, all day, all night, don't turn out the lights. I want you in the AM, PM, weekday, weekend, all day, all night, don't turn out the lights. Yeah, those big brown eyes, I could die from. Hard to pretend when just like day one. But baby, where did you get all your game from? Now my guard is down and we locked in. Late at night until the early morning. It's more than just anticipation. I'm saying I want you in the AM, PM, weekday, weekend, all day, all night. Don't turn off the lights. I want you in the AM, PM, weekday, weekend, all day, all night. Don't turn off the lights. Yeah. No, this is not a subliminal thing. You've got a hold on me. 4:30, I'm thinking about when you'll get home. I guess my mind is made, babe. I believe you know mistakes. Too many reasons I'm sprung on you. AM, PM, weekday, weekend, all day, all night. Don't turn off the light. I want you in the AM, PM, weekday, weekend, all day, all night. Don't turn off the lights. Yeah.
That's AM, PM, and it's the latest song from Luna L. Well, stay tuned. If you liked that, we got live music coming up here on CBC Radio 1. After 8:10, Hera is joining us. She's going to be a main stage performer this weekend at Pride, but she's here in studio and she's getting all set up now, and after 8 o'clock she's going to perform live for us here on Information Radio. Stay tuned for that. Also, we'll have more for you on the evacuees and the wildfires. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Hercules aircraft are heading out this hour to get more people out of northern communities forced out because of those raging wildfires. And those Hercs are going to be going back and forth all day. Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monius says between 800 to 1,000 people are in Cross Lake and need to get out. An evacuee from Puckatawagan Cree Nation says her community was surrounded by smoke and flames as her plane took off last evening. Rochelle Colombs was the last plane to arrive in Brandon before the Puckatawagan airport closed. Around 2,000 people were still in Puckatawagan last night. Chief Gordy Bear says they've started taking people out by helicopter, and if that takes too long, they may have to resort to using boats. He says they are getting desperate. We'll have the very latest on the wildfires for you coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
A couple things to keep an eye out for in your commute, particularly, let's start here in the city. Southbound Kenniston and Lowson Crescent, there's a stall blocking the southbound turn lane, so keep right to get around that. Oh, actually, sorry, that stall has now been cleared. That just changed now. So that has been cleared. Don't have to worry about southbound Kenniston. Though southbound Pembina at Abenoji-Meekina overpass is closed, so plan an alternative route, and you can expect delays during rush hour. Up north on the highways this morning, the one thing to keep an eye out for in particular is Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam. It is closed because of that wildfire around Split Lake and Tatasquiac Cree Nation. Though, even though that highway is closed, if you are evacuating from Split Lake or Tatasquiac Cree Nation, you are still allowed to drive that road to get to Gillam. Keep that in mind. Still to come here on Information Radio, thousands of Manitoba residents have been forced out of their homes, and coming up, we're going to hear from one couple who made their way to a Winnipeg emergency shelter and hear how they are adjusting to being away from their community. Also a reminder, actually, we got a text not long ago from the mayor of Flin Flon, from George Fontaine. He says there is a mandatory evacuation order in for Schist Lake and Big Island Lake, and council will actually be evacuating as well today from the community. Stay tuned as well. We do have live music coming up from Hera after 8:10 as well. And hopefully it's the pick-me-up you need after a very intense week for many Manitobans. Stay tuned. World Report is next.
Today on Q.
The rapper, actor, and entrepreneur Wiz Khalifa will be here to celebrate his latest album, Kush and Orange Juice 2. He'll talk about his early days as an army brat, how they prepared him for the life of a touring artist, and how he ended up with the second most viewed music video on YouTube of all time.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
It's called looksmaxing, a growing trend where men want to improve how they look through everything from skincare to chin implants. The men doing it say they feel it gives them control over their bodies in an uncertain world. We'll talk about that coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We begin with the latest snapshot of Canada's economy. Gross quarter of this year. Statistics Canada figures released just a few minutes ago say the economy raced ahead, outperforming expectations. The CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
Consider this a sort of calm before the storm GDP report. The first quarter, January, February, and March of this year, saw the very first, earliest impacts of the trade war, but the real damage and the real uncertainty didn't really start to bite until April. So economists expected to see a bit of a surge in activity as exporters tried to get ahead of those tariffs and get products out the door before tariffs kicked in. And we saw that in spades. The economy expanded in March, and StatCan says the preliminary figures show it expanded again in April. But the forecast for the rest of the spring and the rest of the summer show Canada is likely now to slip into a recession from here. The Bank of Canada meets next week to decide its path on interest rates, and after this report, markets assume about a 75% chance that the bank will leave those rates unchanged at 2.75%. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
From the east to the west, Canada is burning once again, and thousands are forced out as wildfires threaten their communities. Two provinces, Manitoba and Saskatchewan, declaring states of emergency. Fires also forcing people out of their homes in Alberta, BC, and Ontario. Manitoba, so far, the only province which has asked for emergency assistance from the federal government. It's an immediate challenge for a new government and a new minister. Janice McGregor is with that story. Janice, tell us about the federal response so far.
John, so far, Manitoba is the only jurisdiction that's requested federal help. Emergency Preparedness Minister Eleanor Olszewski approved that request early yesterday, specifically to assist with the mandatory evacuations of two Indigenous communities in northern Manitoba where the wildfires are now alarmingly close. Pimachikamak Cree Nation and the Matthias Kalom Cree Nation. The minister told reporters after question period yesterday that the Canadian Armed Forces has already mobilized.
In fact, those Air Force planes were deployed, and they're in the process of evacuating people from those communities at this time.
As of 8 o'clock last night, that deployment included 4 CC-130 Hercules aircraft. In their first 3 flights, a total of 247 people were evacuated from Norway House to Winnipeg. One was still flying into the night, and they had plans for the others to resume flying at first light this morning. Now, separately, a CC-138 Twin Otter plane flew into the Matthias Kalom Cree Nation last night. However, it is unclear whether plans for evacuations from there were able to proceed after the airport serving that community had to close. The community's chief told CBC News that thick smoke had pushed toward the airfield, making visibility for landing difficult. So although some 200 people had already got out by other means, as of last night, about 2,000 remained in the community, which is about 700 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. Neighbouring Saskatchewan has also declared a state of emergency. Prime Minister Mark Carney posted on social media that he's spoken with Premier Scott Moe, and federal assistance is ready to mobilize. The province has the federal government's full support.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
We could learn if the man charged with murder following the Vancouver Lapu-Lapu Day tragedy is fit to stand trial today. 11 people were killed in the car ramming at the end of April. The suspect is charged with multiple counts of second-degree murder. Georgie Smythe has more.
It's been a little over a month since 11 people were killed at a Vancouver street festival when they were run over by an SUV that crashed into a tightly packed crowd at a Lapu Lapu Day event. Dozens were injured and 7 people remain in hospital. 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe has been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder. At his first appearance 5 days after the incident, Lowe's lawyer asked the court for an assessment of his client to make sure he is fit to stand trial. Rebecca McConkie is a criminal lawyer and vice president of the Trial Lawyers Association of BC. She says the test has a low threshold by design and is about ensuring a fair trial.
The focus is on the person's mental state and cognitive capacity now. It's not looking at what state they were in at the time of the alleged offense. It's whether or not they are able to essentially understand the process that's happening to them as they go through the judicial process now.
The assessment is expected to be shared in court today. It's important to remember that this analysis is totally different to a person being found not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. If Lowe is found not fit to stand trial, it will not be the end of criminal proceedings, but the beginning of another legal process. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Overseas, Hamas says after originally rejecting the proposal, it's taking another look at a ceasefire reportedly backed by Israel. The U.S. brokered deal would see a 60-day ceasefire implemented and more aid shipments into Gaza. Hamas would also return a number of Israeli hostages. But as Tom Perry reports, nothing is finalized yet.
From Gaza, fresh images of desperation. Men in vehicles, on bikes and on foot, rushing off with sacks of flour snatched from an aid truck along a beachside road. Months of bombardment and an Israeli stranglehold on humanitarian assistance have left Palestinians living in dire conditions, though now there is some hope for relief. A potential deal brokered by the U.S. that would see Hamas release some of the 58 Israeli hostages, living and dead, that it still holds in Gaza in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire and increased shipments of humanitarian aid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly told the families of Israeli hostages his government backs the deal. Moshe Emilio Levy's brother, Omri Moran, was taken by Hamas on October 7th.
I want this to end, and I hope we'll reach a resolution. Hamas needs to understand that for the sake of the people in Gaza and for the sake of the future of cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians, they have to let the hostages go.
Hamas says it's reviewing the proposed deal. The group's leadership reportedly not satisfied with provisions around aid delivery and talks toward a permanent ceasefire. For the people of Gaza and the families of Israeli hostages, more waiting and more desperation. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A deadly cholera outbreak is sweeping across Sudan. The World Health Organization says more than 65,000 cases were reported in the past 10 months and more than 1,700 deaths. Experts say it's reached a crisis point and the country's civil war is fueling it. Ithel Musa has more.
The situation is catastrophic.
Canadian Michel Lecharité is with Doctors Without Borders in eastern Sudan. He says recent drone attacks carried out by the country's Rapid Support Forces paramilitary or RSF have destroyed vital facilities like power stations and water plants, accelerating the surge in cholera cases.
No electricity, no safe water, no hygiene.
The capital, Khartoum, has become the epicenter of the outbreak, with health officials reporting 70 deaths in just 2 days this week. But La Charité says
these numbers do not include unreported cases within the communities, meaning that the real situation on the ground is likely even more severe.
Sudan was plunged into a civil war more than 2 years ago when its army and rival RSF paramilitary launched into a fierce battle for control, leaving the country in ruins.
We are estimating the damage to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars.
Luke Arenda is the United Nations Development Program representative in Sudan.
All the facility, the health facility in Khartoum, have been damaged.
An estimated 150,000 people have been killed in Sudan's civil war. Now humanitarian organizations are racing to provide much-needed supplies and vaccines to prevent a health disaster from worsening. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, the collapse of a glacier in Switzerland this week is renewing focus on the role global warming plays in such collapses. The village of Blatten was evacuated as a nearby mountainside gave way and buried much of the community. Scientists say melting glaciers will raise sea levels for decades, but the loss of inland glaciers impacts communities that rely on them for drinking water and agriculture. And they add there is no way to stop the melting. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. And remember, if you're low on power or data for your device, check out cbc.ca/LITE. It's our text-only website that loads quicker and uses less of your data. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. It's a hot, dry day ahead, which I know is not great news for many. But we're here to help you make sense of it. We are going to be talking to, we're going to be hearing from a couple who made their way to Winnipeg and are staying at an emergency shelter. We're going to hear how they're adjusting to being away from their community. They're one of thousands in Manitoba who have been forced out of their homes due to wildfires. Also, this half hour on the show, because it has been a stressful week for so many, we're hoping to just take a breath, take a break, and look ahead to Pride weekend. And we're going to be having a performer join us on air live. She's a main stage performer at Pride, but she's in studio with us this half hour to talk about her music and her life and just maybe help us smile a little bit. But first, at 8:11, let's check in with news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Hercules aircraft are heading out through the day to get more people out of northern communities, people forced out because of those wildfires now burning so close to so many communities. Pimicikamak Chief David Monius says between 800 and 1,000 people are in Cross Lake and need to get out. The chief of Puckatawagan First Nation says people there are also getting desperate. Around 2,000 people were still in Puckatawagan when wildfire smoke forced the airport there to shut down. The deputy mayor of Sheridan says it's been a difficult time as fire is right on that community's doorstep. Cheryl Matheson says it's also tough for people who were forced out and now are in Dauphin. A shortage of places to stay because of events in Dauphin this weekend means evacuees don't know where they will stay tonight. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Abby Adiemi is behind the glass this morning and keeping an eye on your forecast. Hello there, Abby.
Hello, Corey. Let's talk about that special air quality statement in effect for the southeast and northern part of the province. Smoke is still causing reduced visibility in regions around the Power, Flin Flon, all the way down to Puckatawagan. And in the southeast corner, we're still seeing smoke also affecting folks in the Victoria Beach area, tracking it all the way through to the White Shell and even beyond. And so warm, dry weather will continue to fuel this, and we'll see so much smoke in the air. But across board, we're looking at hot, hazy, and dry from south all the way up north, with smoke hanging in a lot of the areas. Winnipeg at this point, 18 degrees. That's what we're seeing in most of the regions. Brandon is at 10 at this time. Gimli's at 17, Thompson at 8 degrees, and Churchill is at 3 and sunny. Most of the regions will warm up close to 30 degrees today.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is Abby Adiemi. And if you probably heard in the background, that was our intrepid director, Sierra Sanders, answering the phone line as well behind the glass, the commuter line. There is a couple things to keep an eye out for a commute. Let's actually start up north on the highway. So Highway 280 or Provincial Road 280 from Thompson to Gillam is closed because of that wildfire around Split Lake and Tatasquiac. But if you are an evacuee from Split Lake or Tatasquiac, you can still take that road to get to Gillam. So even though it is closed, you still can take it to get to Gillam. Keep that in mind. Here down south, southbound Pembina at Abinogi-Mikana overpass, it is closed. So you want to plan an alternative route to get where you need to go this morning if that's part of your commute. As well, that call that Sierra was, you probably heard answering in the background, was from St. Vital Import, who just called. He said northbound St. Mary's just before Kenny or Kennedy, maybe Kenny. before Kennedy. Right hand in the right-hand curb lane, there is a 2-car accident. So keep left to get around that. Looks like it just happened. So thank you for that call. And you can keep those calls coming. Sierra is standing by to take it. 204-788-3093. So it is Kenny. It is Kenny, not Kennedy. I got that wrong. Sierra was, in fact, right. Well, 8:14 right now here on Information Radio. And as you've been hearing in the news over the past few days, thousands of wildfire evacuees have arrived in Winnipeg, and many of them are anxiously waiting to hear if and when they can return home. And among them are Leonard Daniels and his wife, Mary, from Flin Flon. Leonard is blind and uses a wheelchair to get around, and they spoke with CBC's Mike Arsenault yesterday.
It was kind of, for me, it was being a blind old man. It's kind of stressful for me when I have to leave so suddenly and I can't see what I'm doing, can't see where I'm going, but I was kind of worried, especially for young people and elderly people.
And so, walk me through so how did that evacuation happen? Take me through sort of how that all happened.
There was some what you call a radio communication to the people in Flin Flon because they have CJR in Nepal and CFAR in Flin Flon. So the news really got a few people prepared for that evacuation because we were forewarned already that night before yesterday. Yesterday was sudden for us. I just bought myself some shoelaces. I had to rush, I'm blind. I don't know how I tied it, but I think I did good. So, it was kind of annoying in some parts, not wanting to leave the things you want to take, and it's a real bugger thing to have, eh?
Do you know how long you'll be here, or are you still kind of a lot of unanswered questions?
No, we don't know how long. We haven't got any answers to our questions on when we're going home and or how long we're going to be here. Yeah, so kind of feel misplaced right now,
That was Mary Daniels, a wildfire evacuee from Flin Flon. Before her, you heard her husband, Leonard. They spoke with CBC's Mike Arsenault yesterday at the Billy Mosienko Arena in Winnipeg.
Rise in pride, stand in strength. CBC is a proud sponsor of Pride, May 23rd to June 1st. Join CBC at the annual Pride Parade and be sure to show your pride at this year's festival by downloading the Pride Winnipeg app to get the most out of your Pride experience. Rise together in unity at Pride Winnipeg. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Right now, you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcus, and I think it's fair to say it's been a tough week for many Manitobans. And so we just wanted to end our week on a bit of a lighter note. And so next we have some live music here on Information Radio. As you just heard, it is Pride Week here in Winnipeg, and today we are joined in studio by one of Pride's main stage performers, Hera Nalam. First came to Canada when she was 16, where she immersed herself in the performing arts, and she's released music independently under the name Hera. Scored music for 3 Fringe Festival productions. She starred in the 2020 rom-com I Propose We Never See Each Other Again After Tonight. I saw it. It's a really good movie. And she also graduated from Winnipeg's Just TV program at Broadway Neighborhood Center in 2016, where she now volunteers with young Winnipeg artists. And today she joins us in studio with guitarist Daniel Nemes, and they're going to start with an unreleased song, or they're going to start with a song today, and it's called, what's it called again there?
Out of My Mind.
Out of My Mind. You're hearing it right here on CBC Radio 1.
Hey there,
wondered if maybe you and I could start again. If maybe you and I could hold each other again, all over again. Yes, every night is fading like mascara runs away from all these tears. And I know you're never coming back, like summer only lasts when it's not here. You're 1,000 years away and 1,000 miles apart, but only time and distance fixes lonely hearts. And I want to fill the space that you left me behind, 'cause it's driving me out of my mind. You left me in the night and drove me out of sight and out of my own mind. But still I can't forgive myself. The ship that's sitting in your heart is mine. Ooh, it's no one's fault this time. We weren't bulletproof, but still so weak inside, so fragile inside. Your serenade is fading like mascara runs away from all these tears. And I know you're never coming back, like summer only lasts when it's not here. You're 1,000 years away and 1,000 miles apart, but only time and distance fixes lonely hearts. And I want to fill the space that you left me behind, 'cause it's driving me out of my mind, out of my own mind. Ooh, da 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 da, ma da 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 da.
Studio 11 here in downtown Winnipeg in CBC studio. That's Hera with Out of My Mind. Thank you so much. That was lovely.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about that song and what it's all about.
Oh my goodness. I think I wrote this song. I actually co-wrote it with Meldrick Agravante way back, fresh out of high school. This song's a bit older now. It's been with me for quite a while, but I remember it's mainly about the feeling that you get, the nostalgic feeling you get after you had just had a separation with a special connection with anyone, and then just wrestling with the feeling of like, I miss them, but I know that that space is necessary for my growth, but also embracing that confusion and conflict that you get and sitting with it and just being like, well, it is just what it is, and that's okay. Yeah.
And you're performing this weekend at Pride.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what it means to you. I understand you identify as queer. So what does it mean to you to be performing at Pride this weekend?
Honestly, I think I've been very, very anxious. I feel like your identity is a very big thing, especially now that I'm like closer to my 30s, really. It's like, oh my God, all these questions about who I am and what I like and who I love. I think it means a lot to perform and open myself up and introduce. I know I'm doing I guess a doubleheader, almost like it, but I'm doing half of my set as Sabrina Carpenter because I did one in when was that, March? I think, yeah, in March we did a cover band, Sabrina Carpenter, Hera as Sabrina Carpenter.
Fun.
And I think I found a bunch of like new listeners, a lot of friends that have started to resonate and like discovered, I'm like, oh my God, she's an artist too. So I've found this space to be the perfect place for me to basically introduce myself as Hera, as myself, and just to do that and just be like, hey, here I am, I exist, and this is who I am. I think it's ideal. It's very timely.
I do want to get to some music here, but before we do, who is Hera? In 30 seconds.
Oh my God, my elevator pitch. Hera is a multidisciplinary artist, lover girl who is here really for community and connection and embracing your vulnerability. Yeah, that's me.
You got a song up next called Not Ready, which you are ready with. Tell us just also an elevator pitch. What's this song about coming up?
Not Ready is, well, I actually originally wrote it in a point of view of somebody else who wasn't ready to be in a deeper connection, a relationship. And the more I wrote the song, I realized it was actually about me feeling not ready to do the same thing, and more so because I needed to prioritize myself and embracing the fact that it's okay to not be ready. This is part of the journey. Yeah.
We'll take it away live from CBC studio in downtown Winnipeg. This is Hera on CBC Radio 1 with Not Ready.
Makes me nervous, finding myself feeling so comfortable and unusually easy for me to be. Just me, you got me so distracted, got me pausing my grind. You got me contemplating a love that's worth my time. Is all of this delusion, is it worth the try? You've got me going out of my mind. Sometimes it takes a while for me to figure it out. It makes no sense to rush or to give you my heart, 'cause I've only started to fall in love with myself. I'm still trying to control my personal hell. So darling, won't you please let me be? 'Cause I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. Baby, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, no. It sure seems nice, but I think this is all too familiar. It's hard to resist and you don't make it easy. See, I've been broken before, I know what's in store. If I let myself fall, I can't get too close to you, but I'll still answer when you call. 'Cause sometimes it takes a while for me to figure it out. No, it makes no sense to rush or to give you my heart, 'cause I've only started to fall in love with myself. I'm still trying to control my personal health. So darling, won't you please let me be? 'Cause I'm not ready to fall in love. Oh, baby, let's fall in love. But I'm still learning to trust myself. And no, I don't need your help. It's just that sometimes it takes a while to figure it out. No, it makes no sense to rush or to give you my heart, 'cause I've only started to fall in love with myself. I'm still trying to control my personal health. So darling, won't you please let me be? 'Cause I'm not ready, I'm not
We gotta leave it there, Phil. Thank you.
I'm not
Thank you.
ready.
Let's go now to Amy Bell with the latest in the weather and traffic.
Yeah, the latest is there's not much, which is great news for a Friday morning. Everything's moving along fairly smoothly. Just seeing more volume now heading north up Highway 91 for the Alex Fraser Bridge. Kind of flow lane in there. It's in at the Massey Tunnel. Highway 1 seems to be the busiest, no surprise. So a few slow spots coming out of Abbotsford through into Langley. And then a bit sluggish over the bridge itself and through the Cape Horn and the Burnaby Lake area. Still very quiet, though, for the North Shore bridges. The Richmond bridges are in great shape.
With
Keep in mind they do
I'm
have that ongoing work
ready.
on Knight Street,
You can
just
catch
north
her
of the bridge,
this
so roughly 63rd
weekend
to
playing on the
57th.
main stage
And
at
that's what does
5.
cause
When are you
delays
playing? What do
in
you want
both
people to know?
directions
Yes,
throughout the day.
4:15
It
at
is
the main
a
stage.
mixed bag
See you at
for
Pride.
the weekend. Today, I'm
Thank you very much. Do you
cloud.
want
Heavier on the
to,
cloud in
Daniel,
a few
you
spots
want to
right
play us
now,
a
but
little
that'll
bit? I'm going to read some
dissipate.
credits and
We'll
I'm
be
going to go
left
to
with,
news after that.
highs anywhere from
Why
20
not? We
to
got you here,
23, dropping to 12 overnight
Happy
and
Pride,
rain
everyone, by
to
the
start
way.
today.
Big
tomorrow.
thanks to Abby
Then we'll
Adiemi,
drive
Calgadam
the afternoon.
Mulugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, Marshall Hodgins, Dylan Longhurst, Jenna Badoso, Carmen Ponto, Ashreed Veda, May McKillop, Issa Kixon, Chloe Friesen, Bruce Layden, Sid Sundats Horshig, our CA reporters, Shanley Vidal and Jim Agapito, Warren Kay and Travis Golby, and our host Nadia Kidwai, Faith Vandal, Marjorie Dowhouse, and Margot Watt, our YouTube producer Brad Lillies, and as well Nali Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Thank you everyone who worked so hard after a very stressful week covering these fires and helping keep Manitobans informed. Thank you everyone who listened, and have a lovely weekend. Up next is your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 18 degrees. Final Friday of May is going to be hot and hazy. That wind northwest at 20, and today's high is 30. Widespread smoke moving in overnight tonight. Hercules aircraft are heading out this hour to get more people out of northern communities, people forced out because of raging wildfires. Pimachikamak Chief David Monius says between 800 and 1,000 people are in Cross Lake and need to get out. Hundreds of his community members did make it to Norway House, but he says they now will be airlifted to Winnipeg.
There's approximately 332 people still on the list at the Norway House to be evacuated. So we have about 11 to 12 Hercules that are scheduled to go and pick those people up.
Monius went up in a helicopter yesterday to survey the fires. He says one of the roads out of Pimachikamak is closed. Now, concerns are growing about flames blocking escape routes. Some have had to be closed because of fire or smoke, and the federal government has stepped in to help, sending military aircraft. CBC's Janice McGregor breaks down the military deployment so far.
It included 4 CC-130 Hercules aircraft in their first 3 flights yesterday. A total of 247 people were evacuated from Norway House in northern Manitoba to Winnipeg. There was one plane that was still flying into the night. The plan was for the others to resume flying at first light this morning. So those stats are going to probably be updated shortly. Separately, a CC-138 Twin Otter plane flew into the Matthias-Colombes Cree Nation last evening. However, it is unclear whether the plans for starting evacuations last night from there were able to proceed because the airport in that community actually had to close. The chief told CBC News last night that the smoke had pushed toward the airport. It was difficult to have visibility to be able to safely land in planes. There were some 200 people that had already been able to leave by other means, but some 2,000 people remain in that community. You get a sense of the urgency of that evacuation.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Tatasqueyak Cree Nation is the latest northern community to declare a state of emergency. Chief Doreen Spence says fire is just a kilometre away and the community has now lost power.
I have been reaching out to Grand Chiefs. I have been reaching out to the Premier to let them know about our situation. So basically, I don't know what's going to happen in the next while. We obviously need additional candles, flashlights. We need generators because a lot of people are worried about their food spoiling.
Spence says only 200 of Tatasqueac's 2,400 members have managed to get out. A stretch of Provincial Road 280 going from nearby Thompson to Gillam has been closed because of the fire. The deputy mayor of Sheridan worries evacuees from her community may have to be moved again because there isn't enough hotel space. 60 people from that northern community are now in Dauphin. Cheryl Matheson says as fire threatens the town, some people were originally evacuated to Flin Flon, but they had to be moved when Flin Flon was evacuated.
And now we're being displaced again because the hotel was booked for the weekend for a motorcycle event or something going on in Dauphin. So we're going to have our evacuees packed up and moved again, and then possibly again.
Matheson says many of her townspeople only had an hour to pack up, and they're not used to being in a city the size of Dauphin. Now, Flin Flon's hospital and 2 personal care homes are evacuated. Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera says everyone is getting the medical help they need. Asaguera says healthcare staff worked through the night into Thursday morning to make sure everyone got out. 71 patients were in hospital, almost 70 in the 2 personal care homes. Asaguera says some healthcare staff are staying behind to care for those fighting the fires.
These are Manitobans who are actively worrying about their own families. They're worrying about their own well-being, and they're putting that aside to focus on making sure that they can be there for Manitobans and really, truly stepping up in heroic ways.
The patients and residents have been moved to healthcare facilities across Manitoba. Well, a Canadian team has made it to this year's Stanley Cup final.
And the Oilers are headed for a rematch with the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final.
Edmonton Oilers with a 6-3 win over the Stars to take the Western Conference final. This is a repeat of last year as the Oilers now advance to the Stanley Cup against the Florida Panthers. That series last year went to 7 games, Florida coming out on top. Game 1 this year is set for Wednesday in Edmonton. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks for your work this week, Heather. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, and we appreciate you too. Really hard work.
Thank you. Also, thanks to Megan Ketchison, Chris Thompson, and Darren Bernhardt for their work. Abby, what's going on with the weather?
We're looking at warm and hazy day across the southern part of the province. We see highs reaching close to 30 degrees. The smoke continues overnight. Up north, smoky with air quality concerns. Highs will be between 24 and 30. Churchill stays cold. Winnipeg, 18 degrees. Expect sunny, hot, hazy day ahead. High of 30 degrees.
Road 280 closed from Thompson to Gillam. Unless you're an evacuee from Tatasqueak or Split Lake, you could make your way to Gillam. Thank you, everyone who tuned in this morning, and all the best to those who are displaced. And I hope you stay safe and you find somewhere safe to sleep and some good food to eat this weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and we got this, Manitoba. I know lots of people are stepping up for each other, and I know that's going to continue to be the case. All the best. The Current is next.